Yes, fantastic to have your company wherever you may be listening to us today. 4 sleeps to go. That's right. 1, 2, 3, and 4 sleeps to go. Unless, of course, you may have a nap during the day. And then we have the start of the resumption of the 2020 NRL season. We cannot wait for that. Today on the show, we will preview each and every game of round 3 of the National Rugby League, plus part 2 of our season preview. Also, apparently the salary cap is staying basically the same for next year, so we'll have a chat about that. Crowds, breaking news, might be allowed in from July 1. We'll talk about that. Plus, technology and its failure. The best concert you've ever been to, John's thoughts of the week, and also John's song of the week, which I'm sure he hasn't thought about, and whatever else comes up over the next couple of hours. This is the Sunday Sessions. It is Sunday, the 24th of May, 2020. Welcome along to it. Yeah, nice to have your company. If you want to get in contact, you can do so at SWR 999 Sport, at SWR 999 Sport over the course of the next 2 hours. Yes, only a couple of days away, 4 days away from the start or the resumption of the 2020 season. And these guys, well, I've never seen them more excited. Jonathan Gallo there, Johnny Pett will introduce in a second. John, you were here yesterday, and I must grant you, Johnny will remember this. Last week we had a discussion about how late John was. Past 2 days, on time, brilliantly done, and I expect that kind of behaviour for the rest of the year. Jonathan Gallo, good afternoon to you. Welcome along to a Sunday afternoon.
Well, absolutely, Dan, and I'm back in form, mate. I've been pulled into line and I've turned up twice today on time, and look at me go. I'm red hot, mate. I've got a haircut as good as Johnny Pett as well, and you know what? I'm just looking as slick and Rick and ready to go.
Where'd you get the haircut?
I got it at a place called Kevin's Barbershop.
Okay.
He's a young guy, young Indonesian fella. Seems to somewhat know what he's talking about. But he's been new to the area, and I think the area has done a little bit getting behind him, given he's during these times and whatnot. So that's been good to hear. But yeah, $20. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Did you have to leave your details and everything?
I had to sit out the front. He didn't want you sitting inside the store, so you had to sit on these 2 stools in the pathway, which was a bit odd because yesterday it was quite cold in Sydney. So we sat out there, and I was waiting for a good 25 minutes for a haircut. When he called me in, I almost jumped off my seat and ran inside. I was that cold. But it was worth it. It was good.
Good. I'm glad. I'm going to get my haircut tomorrow, so I'll let you know my haircut experience tomorrow. I'll send you a message. Johnny Pett is here as well. Johnny, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, boys. And yeah, look, it's a few more sleeps now, and we're back into the grind, aren't we? Back to rugby league, back to doing and watching what we love every weekend. And look, it's got that, it feels like Christmas Eve, doesn't it? We're really ready to rock and roll soon. And yeah, very excited for what's coming up. And Gallo, I'm liking the haircut, mate. I like the fade. I went up and got a bit of a trim on Friday afternoon, and up at Soul Expression Tattoo Shop there in Thirroul. Got a barber out the front. Lynette does a great job. And mate, yours is looking pretty suave there, mate. I'm half impressed with it.
Hang on, mate. Last week you had a go at me. You said my hairline was starting behind my ears, and now this week you're telling me I'm looking bloody good. So
yeah, well, I tell you what, for that $20 you should have paid him $100, because it's absolutely done you a wonder. Unless you got some sort of filter on your screen today, making it look a little bit better, mate.
Mate, he just picked up what was left on the floor and he put it on my head and he just stuck it there with a bit of good luck and hope, he said.
Do you think I'll be getting these kind of compliments next week when I get my haircut?
You can expect it, mate. I'll be turning up with a beanie. You guys see me next.
I forgot something. Dan, happy birthday for during the week, mate. 30, the big 3-0. We were all supposed to get drunk, and we would have been severely hungover this morning, calling some game somewhere in Sydney if this COVID-19 thing didn't happen. But, mate, happy birthday for during the week.
Thank you. Yes, I had an enjoyable birthday. I did work, but I had a very nice birthday, and obviously not what we had planned. And it's unlike us, Johnny, to rock up anywhere a little hungover. But don't worry, there will be time for that to happen in the next couple of months, hopefully. But no, nice birthday. And I was telling John and the listeners and League Freak yesterday about this little alcoholic drink I got, surprisingly, which is like a tequila, a strawberry cream rosé tequila, all the way from England. Very nice. Tried it last night. Very, very nice. So
wasn't too strong?
No, we thought it might be a bit like... Have you ever had the strawberry Baileys, the strawberry and cream Baileys? Yeah. That's strong. That's like a milkshake.
Yeah, that's what made me think it was going to be strong.
But it wasn't. It was nice. Very nice. Very good.
How much was it, by the way, Dan? Do you know?
Well, it's kind of rude to ask.
So I can convert it to dollars.
It's kind of rude to ask, but seeing it was a birthday gift. But I believe it was about $40, $50, but it's sold out. So,
well, it's not really. It's not real. Is that rude? Is it? I don't know.
No.
I don't know. Manners has never been my best trait, I suppose. Ask Johnny Pett.
now, this is my This is a picture from my 20th birthday. Do you think I look any different?
Jeez. Hey, who's got the filter on now? Brilliant. Looking good, mate. Looking young.
Could I?
You look like it.
Get that photo back up, Dan. Give us a look.
Yep, hang on 1 second. I will do that. 1 second. Here we go. It's got a balloon next to it as well.
How good's that?
Bloody hell.
That was over in England for my 20th birthday. But as I said to one of our mutual friends today, of course, I'm just 29 plus 1, so I'm still in my 20s, which is good. And it doesn't really count this year because you can't do much to celebrate it. Even if you celebrate it later on in the year, it doesn't count, does it?
Not really, no. You're
Exactly.
still 29, mate. Don't worry about it.
Exactly.
Next year.
Hey, I've been telling a lot of people for a long time I'm still 29, mate.
Exactly. And I'm going to keep doing that. Apparently, Johnny, hangovers at 30, do they get worse?
Mate, I tell you what, I turned 38 this year, believe it or not. I can't pull off the 29 call anymore, but they really do. They really do. And I'll go back about 10, 12 years ago, right? We were playing footy, and I was about 20, 21, looking up to all these older guys. And anyway, we'll get on the drink after rugby league every Saturday night. And anyway, we were going out. We were the young ones, and they said, we can't do it. And I said, oh, why? And they said, because, mate, tomorrow, just can't do it. I'll be crook for days. I won't get through the week. And I was just thinking, oh, how soft are you guys? Like, I hope I'm not that bad when I'm your age. Anyway, once I started towards the end in like them early 30s and that, and the young crop were just coming through, they were just mental. I'm thinking, I can't keep up with these blokes. I totally understand what he meant to me them years ago. But it's true, like, if I go for a drink now, you can just write me off for the next 3 days.
Now, Jonathan Gallo's looking smug, but when do you turn 30, John?
In 2 years' time, Dan.
No, end of next year.
End of next year.
Yes.
End of next year. Yeah, end of next year. So I've got 12 months up my sleeve. And by God, I'll use those 12 months well.
When me and you go out drinking this year, John, which inevitably will happen, probably maybe in 3 or 4 weeks' time, you're going to have to just help me out a bit because I don't want to get... Do you know, and we'll get into football in a second, I reckon, doesn't matter how old you are, I haven't been, which is good, but I haven't been properly drunk for probably about 3 or 4 months. The first night, and I know it's slowly starting to happen, but the first night the people go out and have 6, 7, 8 pints, they're going to be completely stuffed. They're just going to be out of it.
I think the paramedics are going to be so busy because they're going to be carting people home on the stretchers. They're going to be that bad. I think people are just going to be loose as anything for the first week. That first week is going to be a write-off. I think workplaces, everything will be bloody chaos because all the workers will be just constantly hungover in that first week.
I agree. All right, we've got lots more to talk about, John. Nice haircut. Very happy for you. I will take a picture of my haircut for you tomorrow and send it to both of you. Look, we've got a lot to get through today. A lot of fun as well, John. I'm sure you've been thinking of your song of the week, and if your thought of the week was as good as yesterday, I cannot wait for tonight's. And I've got amazing news, and we won't know what it is for 2 hours, but Jonathan Gallo has cooked dinner already, so we'll get on to that a little later on. And also, just quickly, the chicken you had last night that you thought was not going to be good, how was the chicken and the potato, the chicken that had been sitting there for a week?
Oh, it was good. It was good. Certainly a lot of pepper on there. Didn't skip on the pepper, as I told you before, Dan. But it was good. It was a good overall meal.
Cool.
Yeah, chicken, bit of potatoes. Nothing overly exciting, but it was a good overall meal. Fantastic.
We'll find out what you're having for dinner a little later on. There's a bit of breaking news coming out in the last hour or so, which we'll get to in a second. But I just want to ask Johnny a question, and it's one I asked John and League Freak yesterday. Fox Sports brought out an article yesterday promoting their coverage, as all stations and all places do, which is fair enough. But they've entitled Round 3, kicking off on Thursday, the most anticipated round of rugby league ever. Now, I asked John and League Freak. I won't tell you what their responses are yet. Do you think this round 3 in 4 days' time, is the most anticipated round of rugby league ever, or are they hyping it up a bit?
I don't think it's the most anticipated. It's probably the most we've waited to watch rugby league at the stop-start season, but I couldn't say it's the most anticipated. It's probably going to be the most watched sport in the next few weeks, probably worldwide, because there is nothing going on. It's probably the only time in rugby league history or NRL history that this game is going to have next to zero competition of other sports that people can go and watch. So, look, there's going to be a lot of focus on the NRL in the next few weeks. There's going to be people watching the game for the first time, betting on the game for the first time because, you know, they've done their money on the two cockroaches running up the wall because there's just nothing that's been going on. So the NRL have really got to capture this straight away in the next few weeks and put out the best product there is.
What are you betting on in the mines, Johnny? Two cockroaches running up a wall? Gosh, that's a good one from you, mate. I never thought you'd be like that. It's good.
Yeah, Gallo. Yeah. No, when times are tough, mate, and the last race at South Africa finishes at 2:00 in the morning. You're trying to make your way home, and you need to try and get that Uber ride home, mate. There's always something you can punt on.
You know, I have to say, I've started betting on the Australian races. I won $15. I only put like 5 bets on it, $1, but I won $15 yesterday. So there you go on 2 horses, one called British and one called Witherspoon. So there you go. Now,
that after Reese Witherspoon?
No, well, it could be, but it just reminded me of the chain of pubs in England, so that's why I
just like she's in my top 10.
Have you watched?
Everyone's top 10, mate. I think.
If you like her, you need to watch Morning Wars. Her and Jennifer Aniston on Apple TV. Watch it; it's very good. Yeah. You'll thoroughly enjoy it. Now, a bit of breaking news coming out. It was published on the Daily Telegraph website about an hour or so ago, and this is what it says: with the NRL's highly anticipated return now just days away, ARL Commission Chairman Peter V'landys has revealed his next huge mission: to get paying members back at games by July 1 and sponsors even sooner. V'landys made the stunning admission to the Daily Telegraph that will come as a massive shot in the arm. Hopefully not, because I got my flu shot the other day and it still hurts. To the Footy Star fans. While clubs have copped some backlash for asking members to keep up their financial support through the COVID-19 shutdown, V'landys said now he wanted to reward them for their loyalty. Asked if he had a specific date in mind when he thinks crowds will return, V'landys did not hesitate. I'm going to aim for July 1 to see what we can do. We want the sponsors in there as quickly as possible. You are allowed so many people, so we will start looking at that with the biosecurity measures in the coming weeks. And I'm not saying capacity crowds. I have to stress cap crowds, which is fairly obvious. That is the one way you can reward the members that have stuck firm. While V'landys has been questioned and even ridiculed for his dogged determination to get the game back up and running, he said he always had a plan to open the game back up to the fans. And he went on to say, there are a lot of things in my head when I went with the 20-round schedule. One was to make the competition credible, to go as late as possible in October so we can get a grand final with a crowd and then State of Origin with a crowd as well. And touch wood, and thank God so far, I have predicted accurately. It's very modest. I said we'd be able to stay in Queensland. I said we'd stay in Victoria. I said we wouldn't need bubbles. So everything we have said has come to fruition. Asked about how many members would be allowed to attend games, V'landys added, it depends on the crowd and how far you can distance them. In ANZ, you might be able to get 20,000 with social distancing, whereas somewhere like Cogra, you might get 5,000. I'm only guessing these figures, but it's absolutely on the radar. That is the next challenge. And he went on to say he wanted to reward the members of the clubs. Now, of July 2, would be the beginning of round 8. Of course, the NRL have scheduled up to round 9 in terms of where they are playing. And he finished off by saying, I have to be careful to say they are capped crowds and with social distancing, but once pubs and clubs are in full swing, there is no reason why we can't. There was a story also this week, and it's floated around today, about the Melbourne Storm wanting to be the first team in Victoria to be a test for other clubs in terms of NRL and obviously AFL to get crowds back in at a certain time of the year. And they said, obviously, hopefully they've pitched an idea to the Victorian government, and they have said that, look, we'd like to do this, obviously social distancing crowds, for a test run to see if then we can get more fans back in and the AFL can get fans. Now, Peter V'landys has said July 1. I've always been hopeful, John and Johnny, that we would get crowds back at some point in this year. And I want to say July 1 is too early, but considering his record at the moment this year, Peter V'landys, he's been doing a pretty decent job, at least in terms of getting things back to the field. If things stay the same, we get social distance crowd, you're allowed 100 people potentially at pubs by then, or unlimited amount of people, seeing how things go. It's possible, and it's a good idea if they can do it, John.
Yeah, they probably just have to sector it in, in the stadium. They probably have to just make sure that each gate, there's only a certain number of people that can go through that gate. One at a time probably would be the preference, with a little marker of when people have to wait for the next person to go through the gate before they let the other one through. the ticketing and all that seating arrangement wise is going to be a bit of an issue, but they probably can seat them out every two seats on the row per row and just allow them to sit in a certain sector. I think there's ways of getting around it. There's no reason why not. If you're going to be in a confined space like a pub or restaurant with 50 people, which is by the 1st of June, then why not in a stadium situation? I think it's definitely plausible. It's nothing too out of left field. So I think why not? If you can get members and fans through and sack them off, then I think it's a good ploy for the NRL to do.
And Johnny, also just on what John was saying about sectioning them off, which is true, they're going to have to, but also you are allowed at the moment, every state is a bit different, but you are allowed to catch up with friends and family and stuff like that. There's obviously a limit, so there's no reason why you couldn't go with a couple of other members of your family or a couple of members or friends of yours and sit next to each other, but then you'd have to probably be social distance from another lot of people. Do you see this as actually any chance of happening by July 1?
I hope it can happen. Look, through the media through the week, we've seen the sex dolls over at South Korea used in the grandstands as rent a crowd. So let's hope we can actually get some humans in there to watch rugby league this season in the next few rounds. But yeah, look, Dan, I think it's plausible. I think it can really happen. The logistics side of it's going to be a little bit hard to tinker with to start with, but if they get it right, and everything that Peter V'landys has done so far, you've got to take your hat off to him. So if he thinks that the NRL can do this, I'm going to back him all the way and say, yeah, it's going to be possible. He can do it. Look, there are going to be 100 people into the grandstand or into the game. Most of those are going to be players, support staff, a few media like this. But in a big, say, a Bankwest Stadium, how good would it be if you could put 50 Dragon supporters in a pocket, 50 Rooster supporters in a pocket, and things like that? You know, you are going to see some vacant seats, but I'm sure those fans of 50 are really going to get behind their team.
And that's what I think. I think even if you can get a block of 50 in one area, and you still have you could maybe have, well, he mentioned ANZ, but even at Bankwest, you could still have potentially 10,000 people in there, but you'd have to be divided into maybe there's a bay with fans and there's a bay not with fans. Obviously, it's going to be problematic, and he's obviously not guaranteeing it. He can't, because we don't know how this is going to pan out over the next couple of months. But I like the idea. I think it's a good idea. And I also think we're going to find out over the next few weeks about how it's obviously it's great to have football back, but we want to have fans back as well.
If they are going to bring the fans back, I hope they turn around and they say, if you want to come watch the football, you have to be a member. Let's not see these tickets for sale. Let's make sure that if it's, let's say it's Roosters v Dragons, let's ensure that if the Roosters are allowed 5,000, the Dragons, all 5,000 of those are ticketed members, because that'll make the supporters go back and start becoming members of their own club again. That a lot of people, they've been sitting on the fence. Are we going to get our value for money? Are we going to see rugby league? This will make supporters become members again.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably what he means, V'landys. I don't know whether he's described it accurately in that statement, but I suppose that's what he means, is that members will get the first dig at the seating, and then obviously as restrictions ease up as we go along, then perhaps fans will be considered further down the track. But I suppose he is thinking that members will get the first pick at it.
Well, he did say he wants to reward the members of the club, so I would imagine that will be the case, and quite rightly so, because we've had this whole, and it was really bubbling along when the game got first shut down, and it's sort of been a bit quiet with a lot of other stuff going on, but we've had this discussion, should club members receive a refund, or should they not be able to pay, or should they get a discount for next year? All very viable options. I'm a Roosters member. I'm still continuing to pay, but I understand why some people can't afford to do it. But to me, I just think if you can get back to games, then people really probably should stop whinging, to be honest.
Look, I'm not a member of any NRL team or club or anything like that, so I can't really give my 2 cents worth on here. But if I was a member and I was a true loyal supporter, someone like yourself, Dan, to a team, there is no way that I'd pull my membership or second guess my membership.
No, and there's been a lot of people saying that. A lot of season ticket holders have been saying, and I know, John, I don't think you're a member of the Bulldogs, but a lot of season ticket holders saying, if we don't get to a game this year, and I've seen this on Twitter from various clubs, I want my money back. Same thing is happening in the AFL. The AFL is a bit different because obviously they've got a bigger membership base, but to be honest, I think there has to be some sort of relaxation in terms of people that may have lost their jobs or struggling with money. But if you're in a position to help your club, John, and you're already a member of your team, I just say, just obviously it's a bad year, but this is when the clubs actually need your help the most. So if you can afford it, if you're a member, just keep paying. And that's my personal view, but I do understand why, John, other people have different views about it.
Yeah, I think the NRL being a bit tentative on it as well. They've been saying, look, if you can afford to keep paying, please, don't pull your membership, because when the time comes and the leagues club reopen again, we want to, put that money towards hiring some staff, which they've got to do all over again for a lot of these clubs, because obviously they've all been given the flick, given what's going on. So, so at least, if I knew that my membership was going towards someone else's wage bill at the club or the leagues club, I'd be pretty happy with that. I think that's a good way of showing your loyalty and your support to your club. So, no, I definitely want to keep my membership going. If I could afford it, why not? And
it's interesting as well to note, in terms of leagues clubs, you just mentioned, I got a text from the CEO, personally texting me, of course. CEO of East, Joe Kelly, yesterday, saying that they are reopening East Leagues Club on the 1st of June, more to be announced throughout the week. I imagine that will be the same for a lot of league clubs. Obviously, there'll be social distancing and all that, but that is a good thing. Now, just before we go to a song, and I want to find out what the good things have come out of lockdown for both John and Johnny Pett, plus we will also do our second part of our preview of the season. If you missed yesterday's, you're in for a treat today. But Johnny, we were talking yesterday about Peter V'landys. Now, League Freak, not a fan of Peter V'landys at all, it's safe to say. John, I think you're a bit more 50-50 about it. I think I am a fan of his. Johnny, do you like him? Do you think he's done a good job? And whilst you answer that, if he wasn't in charge, would we be playing on Thursday night?
Look, I don't know. League Freak, the only thing he likes is 2 litres of of coffee, sorry. So, if Peter V'landys came and give him a big flask of Nescafe, League Freak would absolutely love him. But look, yeah, I am a fan. I think I'm a huge fan of him. I think what he's done for the NRL has been outstanding. I think he's stepped into the role better than anyone has done. And he's the man that's led us through this. Look, if he had a go and failed, I think all of us would be having a different opinion about him. But every step he's made for the right reasons. And everything's come off. He said from the start he was going to get NRL back on. He's pulled off pretty much the impossible, because no other code is even at the stage of coming back and playing some competitive sport. Look, I don't know how people cannot like him and like what he's done, to be honest.
Yes, well, League Freak wasn't happy.
Yeah. Well, I think.
What's he done wrong, Gallo?
Here we go. I'm going to put the microphone down and off these two go.
No, I'm 50-50 on him, because the only reason I say that is I'm very sceptical how we've got here. And look, you can say it's a genius. He made 28. What a ploy. Look, I admit that. Fantastic. Hats up for him. But the question marks about how we got here and how from Channel 9 being the angriest stakeholder in the room to now handing over $2.3 billion worth. I've been in sales all my life. I know to win over an angry customer is hard at the best of times, let alone when you've got $1 billion on the table being talked about. And to them to turn around and say 7 years, whilst Todd Greenberg's been pushed out of the door, and he was pushed out of the door, you can't dress that up. I think that all this short-term stuff is great, but it doesn't hide away from the question mark of some speculative ways of how we've got here. And I just personally think there's some question marks over some of that. I also think the ruling, the timing of the ruling from the second referee to the first referee is something that I have a bit of an issue with. I think he's rolled the ball too fast on that. I think it's good to see people want to change the sport. I understand that. But you have to go through a bit of a trial and error phase. And to dump this all in round 3 when the season's just coming back, I don't think is the smartest decision. And we saw that with the referees. Now, he was going to pull those second referees and not give them a job. It wasn't until the referees union stood up and said, hey, you do that, we're going to take you to court. He's gone to court, and now he's backflipped on his decision, and we've seen that. So I think you need to be a little bit careful about making decisions too quickly here. It's good to make decisions, I get that, and change the sport for the better, but he needs to be a bit careful here about how he's going about things. I think at times he's been a bit careless.
What, you reckon there's a bit of a rort going on or something, Gallo? You reckon there's a couple of pineapples being slipped on the table?
I don't know. I don't know, to be honest with you, Johnny.
I know what you're saying. It's like he pulled he's done the absolute impossible.
Yeah,
something's gone wrong, because if we weren't talking about rugby league and it was something completely different, everyone would be questioning how he's done it.
Exactly.
And I can totally understand what you're saying, but he's done it. Whatever happens in 10 years' time, if it comes back and someone says, "Oh, Peter V'landys, well, look what he done." Well, he's got to go with that.
Yeah, and that's the risk he's got to take, isn't it? I suppose, but
it wouldn't be. Look, there's a lot. It's not just him, especially the referee ruling. It wasn't him that went to the board and sat there at the table and said, "There's one referee. That's what's going to happen." There would have been a group of people that have come across and said, "Let's steer it this way."
But he's the one that raised it on the table before anyone else.
And the thing as well, you've got to remember about Peter V'landys is that he has run Racing New South Wales, I think, since 2007, 2008. And you look at the only sport, literally the only sport that has been going on throughout all of this.
I could have run Racing New South Wales. Yeah. I could have run Racing New South Wales. It was going nowhere, mate. It was down in the dungeons. He won some cup that no one thought about. I could have run Racing New South Wales. Seriously.
Let me ask you a question, John. If you can this year, if not next year, do you want to go to the Everest?
Yeah. The what? The Everest? The Mountain Everest? Everest?
No, the horse race.
This is what I mean. Who's heard of Everest Cup? Honestly. If I turn up, Dan...
Richest race, mate. Richest race. Red Zell won it 2 years in a row.
Yeah, the richest
except
race.
The last year.
Yeah, the richest race. Forget the one Fly Emirates and all the rest of them, Melbourne Cup.
No, it's not, mate. Doesn't it? The Melbourne Cup doesn't even hold a candle to the Everest. It's all about Sydney racing, mate. Peter V'landys, he's made Australia great again. Prime Minister, put him in for PM. Best since Bob Hawke.
Oh, mate, what happened to Shane Richardson for the bloody New South Wales Fireys? Where's he in the running for it?
Who's he?
Would you prefer, John? Would you prefer Scott Morrison or Peter V'landys as Prime Minister?
Oh, don't get that hard.
What's wrong with ScoMo? I like him.
Oh, ScoMo.
I think we will leave the politics out of that. I think we'll be here until 6 o'clock. Interesting discussion.
Dan?
Yes?
Dan?
Yes?
Handshake. There you go, mate. Yeah. There's a handshake for you. You've done well.
Well, you can't actually handshake at the moment.
Your house is burnt down, Johnny. Come in. Here it is. There it is. House is burnt down, mate. Don't worry about it.
And on that note, we will leave the politics out of it. But it's an interesting point. Look, I think V'landys has done a good job, but I do kind of agree with John that I just don't want to see him start to, and we've seen this with the referee thing to an extent. I know it wasn't just him. Hopefully, look, I support the one referee thing. I've said that. I just think the timing was bad. There's talk as well that next year he wants to potentially move the interchange from 8 to 6. Again, not a bad thing if you're doing it at the start of the year. I just think he has done a great job, and he's done a fantastic job to get us back on the field in 4 days' time. No doubt about that. And he's probably going to have to be hands-on for the rest of the year. There's still a lot to get through, even though we're getting back on the field. But when things return back to normal, and presuming he's still in charge, he's obviously got to have some input, but I hope he just leaves it a bit. But I think he's done a pretty good job. Anyway, we're going to move on. We've got a lot to get through in the next 90 minutes, else we'll be here until 8 o'clock, and that will, who cares? But we won't be doing that. Jonathan Gallo, Johnny Pett, don't forget next week, Saturday, Sunday from midday. Jonathan Gallo, you're going to have to reschedule your entire day. How are you going to cope with that?
I'm not going to cope. I'm just going to be sitting on my chair, rocking it up and down. How's this? 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock. It's constantly going to be played in my head. It's going to be worry, Dan. It's going to be a worry midday, but I'll get there. I'll always turn up. And
in a few weeks, we might be doing the show together in the same place, right in there.
In the beer. Johnny rambling in my ear again about how great, ScoMo is and Peter V'landys, and how Boyd Corner's had a big long season, and we should all be careful about him.
I'm worried about you, John. You haven't got a drink in hand yet.
Yeah, no, I'm getting itchy, Dan. I'm getting itchy. I'm getting that little, there's nicotine.
Must be the fleas coming out of your hair.
No, they're coming out of someone else, mate.
All right, you'll be pleased to hear that you could go and get a drink, John. I'm probably going to do the same. After that, I'm going to ask John and Johnny what the best thing about lockdown has been for them. There must be one good thing that has happened. And also, we will get stuck into part 2 of our season preview. We'll do it next after Galantis. This is SWR Sunday Sessions. This is the SWR Sport Sunday Sessions. It's 27 to 5. Of course, all for nothing but league. Haven't actually given mention for the past few weeks. Sorry, Matt and the team, but a big part of our coverage of the rugby league in terms of the New South Wales Cup over the past couple of years. They're still on board, and of course, if you want to know all things NRL, everything will be on that website and also on their Twitter. So big thanks to Matt with sticking on board and with us throughout season 2020, a different, obviously, season 2020 for us, and back for season 2021 as well. That is nothing but league. Daniel Pettigrew, Jonathan Gallo has vanished. I don't know where, maybe to get another haircut, or maybe he's had to, he's bringing bringing in a weird plate or something, which is slightly concerning because I don't know why you're eating dinner. Well, hang on, why are you eating dinner at 4:30 in the afternoon, John?
No, Dan, it's last night's dinner. I didn't finish it all off.
Okay.
So I'm having a bit of a snack while I talk to you two lovely gentlemen.
But no drink in hand.
Haircut. Sorry?
No drink in hand.
No, I've got to go get that. I forgot about that one.
You forgot the important thing. I'll let you eat for a second. I just want to ask, just before we get to our part 2 of our season preview, obviously we've not been as in harsh lockdown as other countries have been, although every country is slowly starting to raise. What's wrong with the food there, John?
A lot of pepper.
A lot of pepper
on this damn thing. Oh gosh. Anyway, it is what it is.
We should do a chili eating challenge for you before the end of the season. That would be good. Yeah, anything good come out of lockdown for you guys? Have you improved? Has anything improved in your life or anything like that? Has anything good come out of your life? Now, John, obviously, I know you've learned how to cook very badly, obviously. But, John, is there one thing that has been good over the past 10 months of your life, Gallo? 10 months, 10 weeks.
Don't say 10 months. Jesus, it's been long enough. I think besides cooking, I think probably done a little bit more reading, actually. I've embraced my reading. Reading about commentating, reading about autobiographies. Watching the Last Dance, Michael Jordan sports documentary. I don't know if you boys have watched that.
I've not seen that.
Get onto that. That's actually a really good one.
Do you have to know much about basketball for it, or...?
No, it's a bit Michael Jordan specific and related, but it's good. It is good insight into how winning teams get formed and some of the egos that go on behind locker rooms and the rest of it. So it is good. Enjoyed that. So yeah, those are probably the things I've enjoyed.
Johnny, have you enjoyed anything over the past 10 weeks?
Jonathan,
bugger all.
that's a very good answer.
Look, it's been a different look. Every day's been completely different. It's just sort of just thrown a bit of a, your social life and what you do outside of work upside down, because coaching a lot of junior footy and things like that during the footy season, it's 2-3 days a week you're at footy training, and then on Saturdays are consumed by junior footy, and then we're commentating down the Illawarra comp, and then we go and do some Sydney stuff. Your weekends are just hammered, but I suppose I spend a lot more time with the family, but it's been really good. Because during the winter I'm a bit scarce at times on weekends, running around with footy and everything like that. So it's been good in a way doing that, and smashed a lot of cartons at home. That's about the big positive out of it. I've turned into a bit of a closet backyard drinker where I used to just, I never used to have much beer in the fridge. I might have a couple of beers, but it wasn't me drinking at home. I live there's 3 pubs within about 200 metres walking distance, so it's very easy for me to go up and have a couple of beers. But now, if there's less than half a carton in the fridge, I'm shitting myself. I'm going to have to go up the road and get some.
That's the one thing. I think I've never been, I would drink at home, but I've never been a huge drinker. And to be honest, even since this happened, I think the most I've had is maybe a bottle of wine one or two nights. But it's not much. It's not like being at a pub, but I've drank more at home over the past 3 months than I ever have. And I think that will change again as soon as we get back to a COVID normal and then a more normal. Yes, Johnny?
I'll tell you what I've really gotten into. It might sound a little bit weird. The old cheese platter. Love a good cheese platter now.
Cheese platter's great.
Cheese platter and half a carton. That's a great Saturday night for me at the moment.
Sorry, I like the cheese platter. I'm just trying to have a listen to John. We're trying to know, what do you call it when we're trying to hear a conversation?
Eavesdrop.
Eavesdrop. Did we miss anything good?
No, I was just telling Paul that I made dinner so she doesn't have to panic.
Was she happy about this?
Oh, yeah. Big smile on her face, Dan.
That's good. It has to happen once in a while for a poor girl. Well, I've been on more walks, and I have not been, since I was a kid, since about 3 or 4 years old, I have bitten my fingernails. You may have noticed this, but because you're not allowed to do that anymore, I have not bitten my fingernails in 3 months. So I do cut them, obviously. So it's a great achievement for me, and now I'm not addicted. How good is that? Until the Roosters play in a close game, and then that may change. But are you impressed? I think that's a very impressive achievement by myself.
Oh well, Dan, you love your nails, mate. You must never be hungry, mate. You must be biting into them all day.
No, it's not like a pizza, John.
Well, you never know. Some people like some awkward stuff out there, Dan. So
They do, but let's not go into that right now. That can maybe be one of your thoughts of the week. And currently I'm drinking a Copperberg Premium Cider, Elderflower and Lime, which is very nice. It's got 500 millilitres in it, so that will do me for a little while. All right, now, are we ready to do the season preview, or do you want me to play a song, John, so you can finish your meal? What would you prefer?
Oh, that's all right. We'll do it now.
That's good. That's brilliant. Although Johnny has vanished, so who knows? Look, what we'll do, we will play a song. We'll let Johnny come back. No, Johnny's got his cup of tea. He's ready.
With a cup of tea.
He's ready.
Hang on, John.
He's ready.
What are you doing, mate?
We ready?
What's that, mate?
Sorry, you come back with a cup of tea.
Rum and Bonox, mate.
Bonox, mate. Please, you've come in with a caramel tea, haven't you? This isn't women's club, mate. This isn't a bloody babysitting event.
Soy chai latte.
Oh, no.
Well, I do order caramel lattes every now and again, so I do like it.
You call me the latte sipper up here in Bondi.
Well, I am from the east, to be honest. So, so we're connected, John. Although you're not actually from Bondi, it has to be said.
No.
You're not privileged enough to have been born in the eastern suburbs of Sydney.
Yeah, certainly not being privileged enough. Yeah.
All right, let's get on with this.
Is that your teabagging over there, Johnny?
I'm really into teabags. And whatever we're talking about.
Your haircut tells me you are as well.
Let's get on with the season preview now. So if you missed it yesterday, we did the bottom 8 teams yesterday from last year. I will ask Johnny about the Dragons when we do our round preview a little later on, because I'll be interested to hear his thoughts on his Dragons. But today we're going to do the top 8 teams. Now, from last year, I have to just say that, of course, we'll do it in order they finished the regular season. So maybe not potentially how they finished overall after 30 weeks, once the grand final was 1-1. Yes, John, what would you like to add as I explain this to our wonderful listeners? And firstly, could you just finish your food before you speak? And then we'll come to it. Yes, John?
Just quickly.
Yes.
I think what we should do is we should record this episode and play it back at the end of the season and see who was the most accurate. Because Johnny, in the last couple of seasons, has been well off. And I've been well off before with the Broncos. I get that.
Was it last year?
Play it back at the end of the season so we can see who was most accurate.
Before we move on, I will admit last year I said Canberra should be kicked out of the comp. Yes. They won't even go near the 8, and Brisbane will win it. So yeah, I'll stand by that.
Well, yeah,
I think I said South wouldn't make the 8 as well.
Yes, you did say that, and I don't think, I think you thought Ricky Stewart wasn't going to survive longer than about a month.
Yeah.
But to be fair to Johnny, he got the Penrith Panthers right. He did say the Panthers were going to be in for a shocker.
Yeah.
Well, he got 1 out of 5. Yes, well, all episodes are recorded, and I will write a note for myself, and we will replay this on the show in about 5 months' time. Now, all right, so we'll go from the top 8 teams from 8th to 1st from last year after the regular season. Now, the Brisbane Broncos, they, by the way, also we've got a timer, so we're going to spend about 3 minutes on each of these teams. It's not a strict 3 minutes, but I don't want to be sitting here for 2 hours talking about one team. So we're just going to move through them relatively quickly. We will, of course, a little later on in the show, do a full preview of round 3 of the National Rugby League. So the Broncos, they finished in 8th position last year. They finished on 25 points. Now, after 2 games this year, as I bring up the NRL app, if I can find it, they are undefeated. They're sitting in 5th position on 4 points, one of 6 undefeated teams. John, you've always been good at predicting what the Broncos are going to do. So to you, first on this one, obviously off to a good start. They've signed Brodie Croft, which is a very important signing for them. They've got some good young forwards. How do you see the Broncos faring in 2020?
Oh, look, the Broncos have been... It's so hard for me to go with the Broncos. I don't know. I was up and down with them at the beginning. I didn't know which way it was going to go because Darius Boyd retired. Going part of the season, which I believe he's still out for. Although I have to say, I think this lockdown's done him the world of good in terms of getting his fitness back somewhat. I love the fact of Pern Huss. I love David Fafita in there. I think Croft and Milford being signed on for another season's going to do him the world of good. Darius Boyd's in the centre. I don't know. Is Darius Boyd retired?
No, at the end of this year he will be.
The end of this year he will be. So, look, there's a lot of talk going around the Broncos. I think they are good enough to make the 8. I don't see them in the top 4. I think they'll be 7th or 8th this year. I think they're going to tire out midway through the season. I don't know whether they've got enough enough potency out there on the wings to really trouble too many sides.
Johnny?
Yeah, look, they're in my top two. I can see them being a grand final team this year. I think last year, I touted them last year as being the premiers and just with their youthful forward pack. And I think that season last year with the guys like Tavita Pangai Jr., Dave Fafita, now we've got Flegler up in the forwards, things like that, players like that. I think that year of first grade for the Broncos have done them a world of good. And I think they're a real premiership threat this year. And look, I think that Milford and Croft are just going to take off in round 3 where we've seen them in rounds 1 and 2 because Milford playing 6 and with Croft inside of him there, I think they made just a great combination. I tend to feel that Milford is going to be one of the standout players in 2020 for the remainder of the season. And look, I've got them in my top 2. I
agree with Johnny. I think the Broncos are going to be up there. Maybe not top 2, but I think they're top 4 for me. I really do. John, if you want
I don't know how you can not think they're going to be at least top 4, Gallo.
You look at their back 3.
Yeah, go.
Asako, Corey Oates, 35 years of age. How do you think those back 3
guys... Corey Oates is lucky to be 25, and he's the most prolific...
Boyd's 85 years old, mate. Boyd's going to a retirement home.
Don't worry about Boyd, mate. Don't worry about Boyd.
You guys are an absolute shocker. You think you're in the top 4?
Well, 2 or 3 years ago, John, we had a bet where you had the Broncos in the top 4, $50. Do you want to do it again? Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. Do it. I reckon the Broncos will be in the top 4.
I'll give you $50 to each of you if the Broncos make a top 4.
All right, done. That's going to be recorded as well. There you go. And we did that with 17 seconds spare, so well done. I just think the Broncos, it's their time, but we'll see. Maybe not to win the comp, but it's definitely their time to be up there. But we will see. $50 on its way to either John or myself and Johnny a little later on the year. Let's move on to the 7th place team from last year, and that was the Cronulla Sharks. Now, after 2 games this year, they are winless in 11th position on 0 points. Johnny, I'll go to this one first while John continues to finish his dinner, or his snack from dinner last night. The Sharks, if you go back, almost 8 months now, they almost didn't make the top 8. They came down, I think, to that last Sunday against the West Tigers, and then they did smash the Tigers. I have real question marks on the Sharks. I had question marks on them last year. They're without now Paul Gallen, no Kyle Flanagan, although he didn't play a lot of games for them, but when he did, he looked good. And I just don't know, Johnny, if the Sharks are going to be that good in season 2020.
Yeah, look, I'm a little bit with you there, Dan. I've got a bit of a soft spot for the Sharks, as you know me, young fella Jack. He's a mad Shark supporter. So I sort of keep one eye on them and one eye on the Dragons. But look, it's the inconsistency of some of their pairings, the likes of Johnson and Moylan, Johnson, Townsend, Moylan, Townsend, Dugan in the mix. That's the problem for me that, they come in 1 week, they're out for 4. I just don't. If they can get a bit of consistency, I think they will be okay. But this is going to be, I honestly feel it's a rebuilding phase here for the Sharks the next few seasons. They've got a good crop of kids coming through from that Newtown Jet side. They've got the likes of Billy Magoulis and Sorensen, William Kennedy, players like this. But I think they're going to need to be blooded into first grade, and they're going to take a couple of seasons. I see them running about 9th.
Yeah, John, I tend to agree. And we talked about Sean Johnson a couple of weeks ago. I just don't see any side with Sean Johnson leading the team around doing much in terms of the competition because he's too inconsistent.
And that's the thing. I think Johnny hit the nail on the head there. I've even got them at 9th as well. I think they're 2 big signings in the last couple of years, Moylan and Johnson being the most disappointing. I'll go as far as to say the whole NRL competition, really, in terms of their week-to-week performances, have just been so inconsistent. I think now Paul going as well is always going to be a big question mark over that. And the young guys, Billy Mangulis, William Kennedy, they've got a lot of potential, those guys. We've seen what they can do at the Jets. But obviously, there's still a few years between that and the NRL level. So I think they're a good couple of years away from top 8 footy, the Cronulla Sharks.
And they've lost Josh Morris, who played rounds 1 and 2. He's gone the Roosters, hasn't he? We've learnt during the week that Toby Rudolph's more than likely going to the Warriors next year. So Rudolph, for me, was one of those. He was outstanding for the Jets. I thought he could have just went into that Sharks forward pack and really made a name for himself. But, they're just, yeah.
Well, this Cronulla team has lost that grittiness, that toughness that they've had in past years. If it goes down to the wire, I can't see Cronulla having enough experience to get
And look, and Fafita, to all his credit, has been a great player. And he's playing a bit like a bastard at the moment because that knee, you can see when he walks, you watch him walk, he's got that, I think it's his right knee. He nearly goes pigeon-toed. it must take him all week to get over a game of football, and that can't be good for him. I can see him not lasting the season, to be honest.
And also the potential that we'll mention a bit later on that Toby Rudolph might actually join the Warriors this year. Now that they've been agreed to loan players, that's not certain, but there is rumours that he may turn out for the Warriors this year. I agree with both John and Johnny. I don't see the Sharks doing too much this year. I think Johnson is too inconsistent. They've lost too much experience, and I think, as Johnny said, I think they're going through a bit of a rebuilding phase. So I think the Sharks may struggle this year, but we've been known to be wrong. So if you're a Sharks fan, don't worry too much just yet. They'll probably win the competition. Now into sixth position last year was the Manly Seagulls, and also Manly currently they are 1 from 1 at the moment. They're sitting in 10th position on 2 points after 2 games. If you cast your mind back last year, there were a few surprises. Obviously, the Raiders was probably the big surprise, John, but Manly, I think, were the other surprise packets of 2020. They had a lot of 2019. Sorry, they had a lot of injuries to deal with. Tom Trbojevic was in and out of that side a lot throughout the season, but they still managed to win games. They didn't have much depth, but they still managed to win these games and got themselves into the middle part of the 8. And I think that's probably where they deserve to be. And coach like Des Hasler, a full off season under their belt, plus an added a couple of few weeks, plus obviously the 2 months they've had off. A lot of this year's competition, I'm going to ask you guys at the end of this who you think is going to be in the grand final and who's going to win, so don't give that away yet. But a lot of this competition is going to be down to coaches. And, John, I think Des Hasler is one of the best coaches in the game and someone you definitely want on your side. How do you see Manly going this year?
Yeah, look, besides being Canberra Raiders last year, I think Manly were obviously the shell-shock team that came out of nowhere for last season. And full credit to Des Hasler for that, because I completely wrote Manly off last season. I didn't think they had any chance of being in the 8. I thought Des Hasler coming back to Manly was going to be a bad thing. I think there's going to be some bad blood left over there, but they seemed to swipe the slate clean again and go again for this season and last season as well. So there's some good talent there. Tafua, Fiona Blake, Cherry Evans, Dylan Walker, the Trbojevic brothers. There's a lot of depth there. There's a lot of great talent. Ruben Garrick is another one. But I have to say, I think Manly not being able to play at Brookvale Oval this year, taking away that home advantage for them, I think that's going to be a big blow for them. That's a toughness of last season. When you went to Brookvale Oval, they brought that fear of God back into you, and that was a tough thing getting over Manly. But this year, not playing at Brookie, I think it's going to take away some of that spark. I think Manly will just miss out in the 8 this year. They'll come close. I just can't. It's very hard for me not to put them in the 8 this year, but I just can't see them being good enough towards the back end.
Yeah, they're in my 8. I've got them in my 8. Tommy, the 2 Turbo boys, they've got to be playing. If both of them play, they're a potential top 4 side. Without them, they're still in the 8. I think leaving Brookie, as you said, Gallo, is going to be hard for them. But I think they'll make a home there up at Gosford. They were the Northern Sea Eagles. We did see them travel up around that region. They might have some, a bit of luck up there. But look, yeah, I think they've got to have the Turbo boys in there, and then we've got to see how Dylan Walker performs as well. And
Daly Cherry Evans has to be out there, I think, for most of the year.
I think he's going to have another outstanding season. I think Cherry Evans last year was just absolutely phenomenal. That was the best year we've seen Cherry Evans play. I think we're going to see that again this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think Manly, I think they're definitely a top 8 team. It's funny, we should be writing our top 8s down because we'll probably have 12 teams in the top 8, but that's all right. I think they're definitely a top 8 team. I do agree to an extent with Johnny. They need the Trbojevic brothers out there, and I agree with John. If there is going to be no Brookvale Oval, and who knows, maybe at the back end of the year we will see some games at Brookvale Oval, but I've been to there to watch games, and I've seen my team win there a few times, but I've seen my team lose there a lot more, and when Manly start playing good football like we saw last year, John, I think Brookvale Oval is very, very important for them.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a slight doubt I have about Manly being in the 8 this year. The other factor about it is Des Hasler coach teams. I remember his time at the Bulldogs, we had one great year followed with 2 or 3 pretty bad years after. It's getting that consistency out of his players every year that I think Des Hasler struggles with a little bit. I don't know how Manly are going to keep going this year with that.
Just on that, just throwing a quick one there. Depth is my only fear with Manly. Is we look where they've got to go. They come out of the Blacktown Workers system and that, and they haven't been too strong or successful. And with the Canterbury Cup wiped, where do these players go to? They're going to get lost. There's going to be a big jump. If Manly has a few injuries, I don't think the depth's there. And these players that were playing Blacktown, I don't know, mate, they're playing park footy.
That's the bomb sound effect, by the way, Johnny. But, John, you may answer that.
Yeah,
what was that? I missed that.
You'll hear it again. Well, when we get to the 3 minutes, the bomb sound effect goes off. But it is a good point, John, very quickly.
Yeah, look, I agree. I think Des has never been one to embrace his youth. We saw that at the Bulldogs. He got criticised largely for it. So the depth issue over time has always been a concern for me with Des Hasler coach teams.
But I thought the depth issue for Manly, as we move on to Parramatta, I thought the depth issue for Manly last year was an issue as well, and they managed to get through it. I think there has to be, obviously this year's a bit different, but for Manly to be a successful team for many years, obviously they've got some very good players. They need to have a better working relationship with the Blacktown workers next year as well. There hasn't been... there hasn't been a great working relationship with Blacktown for quite some time.
It's too far to go.
Well, and then you see Blacktown playing some games at Brookvale Oval as well. It's just all a bit odd. So they've got some time now, obviously, to work on that. So we'll see what happens. I've got Manly in my top 8. On to the 5th place team last year, the Parramatta Eels. Now, they are currently one of the teams on the top of the table at the moment. They're currently sitting, actually in first position on for and against. Have won both of their games, sitting obviously on 4 points. I think the Parramatta Eels are one of my premiership favourites. They showed how good they could be last year. My one doubt, well, one of my couple of doubts, but my major doubt about them, and I'll go to Johnny. I think I went to John last before, so I'll go to Johnny this time. My major doubt on the Parramatta Eels is Bankwest Stadium. Now, there's been a lot made this week about how the draw favours Parramatta, especially over the opening 10 weeks or the next 8 weeks of the competition. But you've got to remember, they were playing in front of the majority of the times, packed out crowds at Bankwest Stadium when they beat the Tigers, when they smashed the Broncos, other games throughout the year. This year, they're playing at Bankwest, but at least for the foreseeable future, there's no fans. I still think they're a very, very big chance for this year's competition. Johnny, then John.
Yeah, look, you're right, Dan. They were riding that wave, weren't they? We were getting packed out Bankwest Stadium crowds. They were all there to watch the Parramatta Eels. They rode on the back of that and had a little bit of success with that. I think they're up there. They're a top 4 side in my mind. The likes of Clint Gutherson, Blake Ferguson out wide. Look, Dylan Brown, I think he's just been sensational there at 5'8". And what a season Mitchell Moses had last year, and he continued on in rounds 1 and 2. In round 1 there, I just think they're a class act, and I think they're going to be very, very hard to beat.
Yeah, I've got Parramatta in my top 4 too. I think they're going to be a real title contender this year. They're as good a Parramatta outfit as I can cast my mind back. Probably the last 10 years, really. I haven't seen a good Parramatta outfit across the park from 1 to 13 as I've seen right now. Their attacking weapons with Ryan Madison, I think, has been the off-field buy of the season for the NRL and for Parramatta. I think he's going to add so much spark out on the edges there for Parramatta. I think his ball playing, his second phase ability with the offload, with Mitchell Moses and Clint Gutherson lurking in behind, I think Parramatta can get so much confidence off that. I love Brown in there, Nathan Brown at lock. I think low, you look at their bench, Takarungai, Kane Evans, people like that coming off the bench. They've got so much more spark and lift about them this year than what they had in previous years. I think Parramatta will go deep in the finals. I definitely see them top 4.
Yeah, I think they'll be deep in the finals. And I think last year they were probably at their right time where they obviously beat the Broncos. And look, people were talking them up as the possibility to beat the big teams last year. I don't think they're at that stage yet. I think this year, as long as they can sort of take, and they don't get many injuries, I think if they get injuries, that may hurt them more than other clubs. But I think this is another step up for them this year.
And how good's their back three with Micah Stevu, Blake Ferguson, obviously Clint Gutherson, we spoke about that back three, and then you got Wonga Blake in there on the edges. I've never seen their back line look as sharp as they have done this season. I think there's so many attacking options there compared to what they've had in previous years gone by. That's where I think Parramatta are going to really be able to hurt a lot of teams in this competition. And
we talk about Blake Ferguson. I thought Blake Ferguson was the signing of last year. He was fantastic when he came over from the Roosters. Johnny, you just wanted to add a bit more about the Parramatta Eels?
Yeah, look, Reid Mahoney. I think he is absolutely outstanding, and he's a future Origin player in the next few years. I think most of their attack is just directed around the middle of the ruck through him, and then he's just a great foil for Mitchell Moses. I think it's the best 9 and 7 combination that Parramatta have seen for a very, very long time.
Yep, agree. I saw him being interviewed on the Sunday Footy Show as well today. He's been very impressive. All right, this is our preview of the season. We'll preview the games in about half an hour, and also talk about favourite concerts as well on the back of something from last night. The Canberra Raiders now, as I said, we're doing it as how they finished at the end of the season, the regular season. Obviously, grand finalists last year. In the normal season, they finished in 4th position. This year, so far, after the 2 games, they have, as I look at my competition table, they have won both of their games, of course, sitting in 3rd position at the moment on 4 points. The Raiders, again, I said it yesterday, and I've said it a few times over the past 6 or so months. I think they were very unlucky, John, not to win the grand final last year. I thought for 60 minutes of that game, they were probably the better team against the Roosters. I think we saw, though, how much experience does play in these parts. Ricky Stewart, I think, has had his critics over many, many years, but I think last year got them playing well. My only fear about the Raiders, well, two things. Now they have to travel every week for a little while, which I think is a bit unfair to them. The other thing that is always in the back of my mind about the Raiders, and obviously they've started 2 from 2, but you cast your mind back, I think, 4 years ago when they did that run and they made it almost to, I think it was to the preliminary final, and then the year after, everyone was expecting the Raiders to do big things, and they didn't. And Ricky Stewart took a long time to adapt the game, and he was playing the same game as he was last year. Now, you could do similar things, obviously, but teams have new tricks. Teams have been watching the Raiders and how they played last year right throughout the off-season. That's my only fear. In saying that, I think they're genuine premiership contenders, and I think they'll definitely be in my top 8. John, then Johnny.
Yeah, definitely. I think they'll be top 4 this year, the Raiders. I think what Ricky Stewart has learned from previous years gone by is his side. He needed to strengthen his side up. He needed to get in the market. He needed to splash the cash a little bit and buy some tough heads, and he's done that. Obviously, Josh Hodgson, John Bateman, and the light Whitehead has been fantastic. The 3 English guys for Canberra, you couldn't have asked for much more. I think their spine has been as good a spine in the NRL we'll see for a long, long time. Certainly, I can remember from the Canberra Raiders. Hodgson, you've obviously got Sam Williams in there, Josh Whiten, and obviously Nick Klotstad. Besides Tedesco last year, I thought Klotstad was the most informed fullback in the competition. He was at one stage, head for head for tries with Tedesco for a large part of the season. So I just think their spine is as good as any, and you back that up with Papali, players like that in their forwards. I think they've got a real good overall balanced team that they haven't had in the past years gone by. I think they're strong heads. I think they've got enough experience in their mix with some good youth to guide them through another good season. I definitely see them being top 4 this year.
Yeah, I'm the same. They're in my top 4. I think they're going to have another successful season. And I heard something the other day that the Raiders are the only team to have their full 13 squad contracted and locked down for the next 2 years.
Which is
now,
fantastic.
If that's not the biggest plus in you've ever heard, I'll give it away, because if you know that group of players are going to stick around for another 2 seasons, you work that much confidence around the people you're with. You've played all last season with them. It's close to their year. 2020 could be their year.
And the other thing, John, I know you want to jump in. The other thing has sort of been. I noticed Jordan Rapana back with them this year as well.
Yeah.
After he
And
left.
look, I think he's fantastic at. I tell you what, I know there's been a lot of talk about John Bateman at the moment, where he's going, or if he's going to chase bigger money. If I was him, I'd be staying at the Raiders, copping a little bit less and building this dynasty, because I wrote him off last year. I'm half on the bandwagon, boys. King Ricky. Ricky's my new mate.
Well, yeah, I think last year we absolutely berated Ricky, me and you, Johnny, but he seemed to pull out a bag of tricks, and whatever he's doing down there, he must have the players by his side. For them to sign on for another 2 years, all those players, shows you how much confidence and belief they have in him, and obviously he's won their trust over. I think that, obviously John Bateman, the talk of him coming to the Bulldogs, that was one of the clubs he's mentioned with. Well, Dan, you steered me to his Twitter post he put on there yesterday, and he said the journo was absolutely kidding himself, and he was basically, in his words, quote, bullshitting. So, I don't see John Bateman going anywhere. I think those players are staying together for next 2 or 3 years. I think they've got a strong squad together and a strong future, Canberra Raiders.
Although there has also been talk as well that over the past 24 hours that his manager is looking around. But I think regardless, I'm with Johnny. I think he should stay.
The one thing I just think about the similar to Manly situation, them not being able to take the games at home and play in front of the Canberra faithful this year, I wonder how much that take their ride a little bit.
Did you hear that?
I heard something, yes. Bomb go off.
Bomb. I agree with you. But hopefully maybe in the second part of the season they'll be able to get more games at home. But we will see what happens. I think we're all...
Just on that, boys, you reckon that the Raiders will be able to take that big horn into the ground? Look,
Well,
if you look, it's not a person, it's not COVID. You can get the strapper or something. How good would that be?
They'll miss the Viking clap.
Yeah, get the horn there.
I agree. I like that. John can volunteer to drive it from Canberra to Sydney.
Absolutely, mate. Go down there for a few beers and fireworks and then come back up with a horn.
Now, third place last year was the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Currently, after 2 games this year, they've won 1, lost 1, sitting in 8th position on 2 points. Obviously, and I have no idea who I went to first on the last one, so I think I'll go to Johnny first on this one. My memory is not very good. My short-term memory is bad. My long-term memory is very good. Obviously, the good thing about the Rabbitohs is they've got Wayne Bennett. They've been under pressure a bit with Cody Walker. Obviously, he's going to miss the next 2 games. We'll talk more about that a bit later on in terms of our preview of round 3. The big signing, of course, Johnny Latrell Mitchell, wasn't outstanding in the first 2 weeks of the competition, has had some issues off-field. Souths are a tricky one for me. I think they're a top 8 team, but I think they're probably more bottom of the top 8 than the top half of the top 8. How do you both see the Rabbitohs going in season 2020?
Yeah, I think they're 5 to 8. I think they're in that bottom half. Latrell's got to go back into the centres, in my opinion. But then who do you drop? You've got James Roberts and Braden Burns. You've got to put them back. One of them goes back to the picket swing. And then you've got to knock off Dane Gagai or Campbell Graham. Campbell Graham probably goes. Dane Gagai, how good is he? Alex Johnson has to play fullback. That's just my opinion. I think they've tightened up around the middle of the field really well. Damien Cook there, but they've also slipped Liam Knight, who's predominantly a front rower. He's gone back into the 13 jersey with the absence of Sam Burgess. I think that's good because Liam Knight is a very direct middle forward, so I think he'll plug a hole in the middle there. But look, it's all up to these halves, Cody Walker and Adam Reynolds. Adam Reynolds, he's a superstar, but he needs Cody Walker to be on his game. And Cody Walker's in a little bit of froth and bubble at the moment, so we'll see if he can bounce back from that. But I've got him in the bottom half of the 8 there, Dan.
John?
Yeah, I think they'll be bottom of the 8 this year. I think they're one of the sides I think Parramatta will replace. I think South at the moment, their back line, as long as Latrell keeps playing at fullback, I don't think you're going to see the best out of South. I think he needs to come to centre at some stage. I think Wayne Bennett and Latrell are going to have that conversation because he's just not a fullback. He's all over, particularly defensively. I think position-wise, he doesn't know where he is. But I think that the forwards, they're going to miss the Burgess boys. Sam, in particular, they're going to miss hugely. And George, they're going to miss that grunt. The question I have over South is when the going gets tough in the last 10 minutes of the game, I don't think they have enough pull power to get them over the line like they did in the last couple of seasons. And that's where I think Souths are going to struggle. I think Cody Walker, if he can get turned on, if he can get in the right frame of mind and play the right footy and help out Adam Reynolds a lot more, then I think they've got a chance. But without that, I think they're going to be bottom of the 8 this year. And
it's safe to say Cody Walker, after that Origin game last year, was never the same player. And he was brilliant in the first half of the year. The second half of the year, he was very poor. Obviously going to miss the next couple of games as well. So disappointing for him.
We tend to forget sometimes Cody Walker around 25, 26 years of age. So he was an older head that's played a lot of less games. So he's had half a good season there where he's played outstanding football, got selected for State of Origin, and then he's had probably his first hiccup as an NRL player. A lot of these players, they get that hiccup earlier on in their career and can bounce back from it. You know, Cody Walker, he's 20, what's he now, 27, something like that. I think it's going to be hard for him to get mentally prepared to go up for another season. And look, all this off-field drama as well might just throw another spanner in the works for him. Look, I hope he comes back to his best because he's a very, very talented rugby league player. And he's the difference, I feel, between the Bunnies getting in that top 4 and not getting in that top 4.
Yep, and as you said before, I think Adam Reynolds desperately needs him to be in form for them to be a good chance. And I agree with both of you. Alex Johnson has to be at fullback for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. The final 2 teams will, as I said, this is where they finished after the normal, after the regular season, after the 25 rounds. The second position last year obviously went on to win the premiership, the Sydney Roosters. Currently, they have not won either of their games. They're currently sitting in 12th position, but obviously on 0 points with a host of other teams. Look, obviously back-to-back premiers, and the first team to achieve that in a very long time. I was a bit concerned, though, about their first 2 weeks. Obviously, they only just went down to Manly, and that game could have gone either way. Personally, probably if Luke Keary had scored that try that Tom Dvojevic did a magical job of hitting the ball out of his hand, they probably would have gone on to win. The Panthers game, they were really good in the first half and then switched off. My worry about the Roosters is Kyle Flanagan. Now, I think Kyle Flanagan is a fantastic player, but I think it's going to take time for him to adapt in there. Obviously, no Latrell Mitchell, but sort of offshot a bit by the fact they have got Josh Morris, as Johnny mentioned before. But the big thing for me is how is Luke Keary going to go? We've seen him for 3 years at the Roosters, 2 of those years alongside Cooper Crock, and he was fantastic, but this year it really is his team. I still think they're a premiership contender, but they're not my favourite. I have them in my 8. John, how do you see the Roosters going?
I think they'll be fine this year. They're too good of a side. People who think they write them off after 2 games are kidding themselves. They've got enough depth. They've got talent in there to take over any team they really want to. If they switch it on, Keary and Tedesco alone, good night. Jake Friend, Rory Hargrave signing on for another year for you guys has been a big plus. Takiyaho, I think, was one of the most informed forwards as well last season. You add that with the toughness of Orbison, Crichton, Boyd Corner in there. I know Crichton was a bit hit and miss at some parts of the season, but you've got that toughness and that experience in Boyd Corner and even Orbison guiding the way. I think they're still as good as ever, the Roosters, and they've still got the depth. Kyle Flanagan, he needs time, but I think the fact that he's got experience head alongside him in the halves and Luke Keary, and the fact that he's got a ball-playing fullback behind him, one of the best in the game in James Tedesco, who's not only a great ball player but also a great ball runner, even better ball runner, probably up there with Billy Slater in his time, actually. I think he's going to be fine. He's going to be right at home. If you want a young guy to get experience, you want those 2 guys playing alongside you the whole way. So I think the Roosters are going to be fine, really.
Johnny?
First or second for me this season.
Yeah, look, I've got them a peg below there, Gallo. I've got them around that 4th, 5th position. I just think the experience or the lack of experience with Kyle Flanagan might hamper them a little bit. I know you've just rattled off an absolute wealth of talent there that could fit into any football team, but I just think your 7 has got to be your main man. And I think Keary's going to have to really step up and do a lot more than what he has in recent years without the direction of Cronk. I think Flanagan's going to do a really good job. I just think this year in first grade will just be a season for Flanagan to find his feet, know where his position is on the field and where he stands in that pecking order. And then next year, I think we'll see the best of Kyle Flanagan. But I think they're still around that 4th or 5th.
How much do we think that, obviously they've won 2 in a row, obviously they've been committed and is the hunger still going to be there? I know they've got a couple of new players, but is the hunger still going to be there this year?
Yeah.
Well, when was the last team to win 3? Parramatta, was it?
Yes, I think so, yeah. Parramatta
back in the 80s. So, look, no team's done it. The hunger's there. It'd have to be your likes of Friend and Hargraves and players like this. They're in their twilight years now. This could be the last chance they get to win a trophy. That all gets put behind them now and they want to win one more. So, look, the hunger will definitely be there. Josh Morris, Brett Morris, they're together. They'll want to win one as brothers again like they did in 2010. There's a lot of stories behind this Roosters team to go 3 in a row. Look, for rugby league history and for every one of those Roosters supporters, I hope they do it. I can see them falling just shy. Yeah,
I agree.
It's going to be an different one. I think the Roosters are going to be fine. If Kyle Flanagan would want to play anyone, it's Trent Robertson. So I think Trent Robertson will give that confidence and that guidance to Kyle Flanagan.
And it was interesting, as well as my favourite sound effects goes off, that at the fan day after the Roosters won the competition last year, Trent Robertson was saying that he was already planning for next year. Now, obviously, next year has gone a bit different as to expected, but that just shows how professional he is. Just whilst we're on the Roosters as well, condolences to Mitchell Orbison and also his brother James Orbison. His father passed away, I think it was in the Daily Telegraph on Phil Rothfield's paper, passed away, I think, last week, and he was just due to retire. I think he was a fireman, and he was just due to retire in a couple of weeks. So obviously, our thoughts and condolences out to Mitch Orbison and also James Orbison, who used to play for the Roosters. I think he also had a bit of a stint at the Storm, and obviously the wider Orbison family. The final team, before I ask the guys for their premiership tip, is the Melbourne Storm. They finished first last year in the regular season. Currently, they've won both their games, and they're sitting in 4th position on 4 points. Johnny Pett, look, the Storm, everyone every year sort of writes the Storm off, and every year they come back. They've still got Cameron Smith. Again, the one thing I said all about the Storm all throughout the year is I think they only lost, 3-4 games in the regular season, but they were all against, or most of them were against, top 4 teams. Now, they didn't seem to have that next level, and we saw that as soon as we got to the finals last year. Do we think under the coaching of Craig Bellamy, they've managed to see a next level and potentially go even better than last year, or do you see them sort of in that top 4 period, but maybe not being able to go all the way?
When you first said this, Dan, about trying to get this top 8 and give us a bit of an opinion of it, I said to myself that the Storm were like a dark horse. But no one knows what they're going to do. It's hard to call the Storm a dark horse because of all the success they've had, but every time, as you said, you write them off, you think, they're not going to have a good year. Smith's gone. Cronk's gone. Slater's gone, everything like that. But they just keep providing play that they've created. And they've just had those second-tier players step up and become top-line first-graders. And then you've got this young kid at the back, Pappenhausen, who's going to be a potential superstar in a few years. I can't write them off. I can see them being with the Roosters in that 4th and 5th position.
John?
Look, I think Melbourne are going to be top 4. I think it'd be crazy to get them out of top 4 because Craig Bellamy's done it time and time again. There's no one more experienced than Craig Bellamy. He knows his side better than anyone. I think he's with Jerome Hughes in there and Munster. Jerome Hughes is going to be a huge improvement. The back end of the finals, I think he stepped up. I think Pappenhausen at fullback, he's only going to get better and better. You could see glimpses of what he could do last season. I don't think he strung it up for long enough, but you could see glimpses of what he could do. When you got Vunivalu one side and Ado Carr on the other, you potentially got one of the best back three going around in the game in terms of punch and getting that back quicker than anyone else. I think the back three for Melbourne is going to be sensational. I think you match it with Cameron Smith. I tell you what, if anyone's going to benefit from this one referee, it's going to be Cameron Smith in the Melbourne Storm. And they're going to play on it like every day of the week. So my bid is Melbourne Storm are going to learn the wrestle again. They'll do that again for sure. And I think that's where this advantage is going to come into Melbourne. The one referee is going to be right up Cameron Smith's alley. And I think he'll dictate a lot of the games as Melbourne get on. So I think, yeah, they're definitely top 4.
Yep, I agree. I think they'll definitely be up there. All right, time to get the predictions of Johnny Pett and Jonathan Gallo in terms of who's going to be there on Grand Final Day on the 25th of October if everything goes to plan, and who is going to be the Premier. Johnny Pett, who will be there on Grand Final Day, hopefully in front of some sort of fan, somewhere, wherever it's played, and who's going to end up winning the competition in 2020?
Broncos, Raiders, Grand Final.
And who wins?
Raiders.
Jonathan Gallo.
Tough one. I might say it's going to be... I think I've got a feeling it's going to be a Parramatta and Melbourne grand final.
Who wins?
And I think Melbourne.
You think Melbourne? I am going for a Raiders-Eels grand final. I think the Eels have the potential to make it, but I think the Raiders will win, and I think there has to be should be a lot said for being in a grand final, losing it, and coming back the next year and winning it, Johnny.
Have you got a top 8, Dan?
I haven't in front of me, but do you, Johnny?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, as we were going through.
Yeah.
So I've got Broncos and Raiders.
Yep.
I've got the Eels. I've got Roosters, Storm, Manly, Bunnies, and the Knights.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Would you not? Did you say you have Penrith in there?
No, I don't have Penrith. I've got about 5 teams that are going to run 9th.
Yes, I think that's about right. John, do you have a top 8?
Yeah. So I've got Roosters, Parramatta, Melbourne, and Canberra.
Mm-hmm.
And my bottom of the 8 is going to be Penrith, Brisbane. Who am I else missing? Cowboys. I think Cowboys will be in there. And South.
It'll be interesting. I don't have one in front of me, but I'm kind of agreeing with Johnny. I still think Penrith could potentially be in there. But I don't see there as being many sides from the bottom half of the competition last year really pushing their way into the top 8. I think there's a couple, but as we discussed yesterday, I don't think there is a lot. So it's going to be interesting anyway.
3 or 4 will be playing for that 8th spot. I think it's going to come down to the wire with 3 or 4 different teams.
Yeah, I'm with you, Gallo. I think the likes of Penrith, the Sharks, the Tigers, even the Dragons might nip at the heel there for 8th and 9th. But, yeah, there's a lot going to be at the bottom there. And your camp, the Bulldogs. I've been touting them I've been said for 3 seasons now that they're due to crack into that 8. And look, no, I'm telling you, they've shined with Wakeman, signing Wakeman, and if Foran's fit, I think we're going to see Wakeman potentially be a very, very good number 7.
Oh, I don't know about that. I put them as my wooden spooners this year, Johnny. I just can't see.
Oh, you're a good supporter.
I'm a realist. I think this is off season's done them a little bit of hurt. I think they've lost momentum from back end of last season. And you look at the 2 games they played against Parramatta and the Cowboys, they were 2 absolute snorers of the game. There was no positivity in it. There was no hunger or drive. They lack a lot of spark this year, the Bulldogs. I think Dean Pay needs more time. I hope the fans give him that. But I think the Cowboys are going to be a big surprise this year. I think the Cowboys with Valentine Holmes signing and Tamalolo back there, I think the Cowboys are going to surprise a few.
I wrote the Cowboys off. The only thing that I think the Cowboys will save them is the draw and the setup, because they're going to be potentially playing all their games up there. It's the only way that's going to save them. I thought they were going to be the snorers of 2020, to be honest.
All right, well, in about 15 minutes, we're going to do a preview of round 3 of the National Rugby League as well. But after this, we're going to just move away from rugby league for just a second. I want to talk to Johnny and John about their favourite concert they've ever been to. And this is on the back of Powderfinger, who I like Powderfinger, but I'm not a massive fan of Powderfinger. But they did a reunion last night. They did an online concert. 90,000 people watched it live. So basically, a bigger crowd than ANZ Stadium. 90,000 people watched it. They finished off by singing a very, very nice song, which is basically summing up this situation. So I want you guys to have a think about what are your favourite songs. Also, the next 40 minutes, John's Song of the Week. Yes, you have to think of one in a second, John. And also, we'll go through a bit of the other NRL news. Plus, we finish off, of course, as always, with John's Thoughts of the Week, which is always scary. This is from their concert last night. This is Powderfinger and These Days. Very nice. That was from last night's live concert. 90,000 people watching that. John,
was it 90,000 people falling asleep, or was it 90,000 people watching?
Yeah.
Jesus. If they started with that song.
No, they finished with that song. They finished with it. They finished.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's because these days are nothing like we had planned. Just before I get to your favourite concert, I was just watching your webcam there quite intently. I would love, Big Brother comes back in a couple of weeks, I would love to have a Big Brother style set up at your house just to see some of the excitement that happens in your house. I'd love a week, and we should do a documentary, a SWR Sport documentary, a week in Jonathan Gallo's house. Would it be exciting?
Oh, absolutely, mate. You'd love it. It would get millions of viewers worldwide. Get Johnny Pett over, you over, get Jack Clifton over, get Nathan Wright over, get everyone over.
No. We don't want to come over. We just want to watch. We just want to watch you and Paul associate with each other.
Oh, man. Give you the best camera angles in the world that you'd like, mate. You tell me what you want to watch, and I'll give it to you.
No, just the day-to-day thing, just the day-to-day life. Because were you handing her a washing basket before, or was that something else?
Yeah. I gave her a washing basket. She said, "Can I come in?" I said, "You better not." So I gave her the washing basket and handed it over.
She could come in. She was the star of the show a couple of weeks ago.
She's got the onesie on again, Dan. She's got the onesie on.
No issue with that. You should buy one too. You should get a matching onesie. Now, before we get all in trouble, we're going to move away from that topic. Favourite concerts? I just played Powderfinger. I tell you what, that song actually reminded. It's a great song. That reminded me of when Pete Murray was performing at that bushfire concert a few months ago, and how good that was. But favourite concert, Johnny? How many concerts have you been to in your life? And is there one that really stands out? Or there none that you can think of?
Oh, look, I'm not much of a concert sort of person. I'm more of a go to the pub, have a couple of Jack and Jills, and
live music there. You like some live music there at the pub? I like live music at the pub.
Never big on the concerts or anything like that. I don't mind just going down the pub and watching a band and getting a bit twisted. But yeah, I tell you what, when I was a young fella, Green Day, Wollongong University, I would have been about 16. Remember the Dookie album?
Yes, I saw Green Day, not that one, but I think they toured in 2009. And I remember when Green Day was I think they were the biggest band in the world for about a year. When American Idiot came out and Holiday, they're the biggest band, and then.
Yeah, Blink 182, all-time favourite.
Love them. They're good.
Growing up, they would be number one.
All the Small Things.
Small Things. Yeah.
Titled after lots of things. Jonathan Gallo, your favourite concert that you have ever been to?
Oh, I can't remember too many when I was younger, actually. I've been quite a few, but I can't remember a lot of them. But the one that stuck out when I went with you, when I went to the Killers, that concert was unbelievable. Yeah.
Went for about 3.5 hours.
Yeah. Yes. It went on a little bit, and getting the beer was somewhat of a journey, wasn't it? But it was good. It was a fantastic night. Unbelievable. What a crowd that was. Unbelievable. I won't forget that in a hurry, that's for sure. Yeah,
and the Killers due to tour again very soon, so we'll be going there when we're allowed to. Yeah, the Killers for me. The Bushfire concert was great. That's maybe a once-in-a-lifetime thing, although I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that again in the next year or so. That was good. I've seen a lot of people. Green Day has mentioned. U2 I've seen twice. The second time they weren't that good, but the first time good. I saw the Rolling Stones many years ago as well. It was about 6 rows from Mick Jagger walking up and down the stage as he does. He was very good. I've seen John Farnham a couple of times. I've also seen... I saw Bon Jovi, I think. Was it last year or the other year? You were going to come to that, John, but you didn't. And I've also seen Katy Perry and Taylor Swift, but that's okay as well. Speaking of bands at pubs, as Johnny was on my new iPad last night, I was just scrolling through my videos, and John, I scrolled back to a time in our life that was much easier, and we saw our favourite band, Panorama, playing at a certain venue. And what I noticed about those videos is how close people were, and you can't be that close anymore. And I actually, lots of things. There was a particular night when it was raining and we left a little later on than expected, and I saw a familiar face pop up. You may get my meaning there, and it wasn't you. And it just brought back many, many memories of a very interesting night.
Are you sure you still made the right decision, Dad?
I'm fairly confident that I did. And that decision, of course, going to the pub was the right decision, of course. Fairly sure. Actually, more sure now that the right decision was going to the pub, as that is always the right decision. But Johnny's right. Pub bands are great. I think when you get like a lot of people there, it's good. We've had some great times over the last year, and I look forward to more in about 6 years.
We should drag Johnny along to watch Panorama.
We should. Well, he would like it, unlike our other friend Nathan, who hates it. So, Johnny, when we're all back, give it 7 or 8 years, and we will be rocking out, all getting hangovers because we'll all be over 30.
Sounds good. I'll nearly be 40 then, so I'll still keep up with you.
I think you...
I'll just pretend I don't know you.
Well, hang on.
A lot of people do that, mate, when I'm out on a drink.
Anyone do that to you, John? Pretend they don't know you?
Oh, please. No one does that.
Every Sunday when we go to the footy.
Yes. And I was reminded on Time Mob, actually, speaking of the football and hangovers, we're in the period of time where the 2 games... Do you remember the North... Johnny was there, actually. The Norths-West game last year when we were commentating down the bottom of North Sydney Oval. It had to have been one of the worst games, I think.
We were us three.
Yes.
It was a terrible... It was a rainy day that day,
yeah,
wasn't it?
It was pouring down, yep.
Terrible. And that was a day that... What Tigers Packer? Russell Packer played?
Yep, I think so, yep.
Absolute shocker. He had, I think, 8 knock-ons in the first half and like 5 or 6 penalties in the second half.
I think you yelled into the headset that hard that he heard you on the ground at one stage. You were absolutely giving it to him. Honestly, if he listened to it, he'd go and knock on your door and belt you.
Well, you know the problem of that. Day. It was the day after the SG Ball finals and the great day at Bankwest Stadium, apart from the knee injury. And then the next day, we turn up and watch that absolute rubbish. And then I think this weekend was the equivalent weekend, or last weekend was the equivalent weekend of the magic weekend of the New South Wales Cup, when myself and Jonathan Gallo were at Henson Park, and we got very distracted in that first game by some of the fans sitting underneath us, which will. And I think there was one common denominator in all of that. We were hungover. But as Johnny has warned, we're going to be more hungover as the years go by. So that is fantastic news. Are you looking forward to that, John?
Absolutely, Dan. I'm missing New South Wales Canberra Cup calling so much because there's been no talk about that coming back at all with the NRL. That's
done. That's done for the year. Ron Massey at Sydney Shield is so the New South Wales Rugby League put out a statement Friday, saying that they are going to issue another statement basically on June 1. So we're going to hear more on June 1. Canterbury Cup done, Jersey Flegg done, potentially Ron Massey and Sydney Shield back, plus the country games, which we're looking to cover here, part of SWR League as well in 2020. I think, and I don't want to be critical of the New South Wales Rugby League at all, but I think they might have pulled the pin a bit too early on the Canterbury Cup.
Way too early. I mean, if the NRL are coming back, I can't understand why Canterbury Cup logistically can't make it happen. I mean, they're not going to get, realistically speaking, I don't think they get more than Newtown Jets maybe being the odd one, Norths, in a rivalry game, yes, maybe, but they can limit that. Surely they can control that and just sector them off like the NRL are going to think about doing. I don't see why we can't get...
I think they've cut it all off, Gallo, because of money. Because these second-tier clubs are all backed either by leagues, clubs, or pubs or something like that have got no revenue. There's not much coming from New South Wales Rugby League to keep these guys afloat. And what is coming through New South Wales Rugby League has got to be propped up and given to the NRL or to the State of Origin or whatever that next tier. And if they're going to run something else. They need to have the money. I think it was an absolute just a thing of money.
I also think as well that potentially, and still may happen, that I think the NRL squads needed a few more people as well. They wanted to, basically their reasoning, and I get it, is that the NRL is where they make the money, and they wanted enough players to be available for that. So disappointing about the Canterbury Cup, but we will be back next year. I'm looking forward to Belmore Oval, North Sydney Oval, and all those other places that we will be in 2021, hopefully not socially distancing.
What's your favourite to call at, boys? Like over the last couple of years, what's been your favourite ground to go to and call?
Look, I love Bankwest, but we don't get to go there often. Outside of that, I think North Sydney's a tricky place to call from, just where the position is, where you're standing. I loved going to North Sydney Oval, and Belmore's always good as well. John, do you have a particular favourite place?
Yeah, I just tend to love Belmore, not because I'm only a Bulldogs fan, but it's more down to the fact that the access to the box is the easiest. It's the biggest, I think, out of the lot.
When the doors are open, yep.
The doors are open. Just getting the windows open is always a bit of a funny nightmare that we have. But in terms of comfortability, I think Belmore Oval's, a really good ground as well.
Yeah, I agree. But Leichhardt's a good play. The only problem with Leichhardt is the commentary boxes are so small. When you're in the corporate box, it's all right. Even Henson Park. I've done a lot of games at Henson Park for the other place, and we were there last year. That's really good, except, again, it's a bit of an awkward place to call from. But what I do like about that, and I think we had Sam Verrill's dad come up to us a couple of times throughout the season before he made his NRL debut, saying how good he was enjoying our call. So it's good that we actually get to mix with the fans, which we always love doing, John and Johnny.
Yeah, and I remember we went down to, was it Shoalhaven? We did the
Shell Harbour
game. Shell Harbour.
Yep.
We went down there. That was a good spot there under the grandstand there. That was a good time.
I also love Wynn Stadium. I think Wynn Stadium is an awesome place to call from.
Wynn Stadium's good. Yeah, Wynn Stadium's a good one as well. Actually, I'll probably put Wynn just ahead of Belmore, actually. I'm missing
being at the game. I'm loving doing this, but it's we just want to get back to the football and call some games. But next year, we're only 8 months away from it. So, Mark,
I tell you what, you're going to have to teach me how to put on a headset again, Dan, because I've forgotten how to do that. I was ever good at it.
You're going to have to teach me how to commentate again, which reminds me, I need to talk to you about something, John. All right, look, we're going to play a song. Still to come. I think we're going to go overtime. I just have that sneaking suspicion. We're going to, right after this, though, preview round 3 of the National Rugby League, plus John's song of the week and John's thoughts of the week. Plus, there's a lot of other NRL stuff around. We might just quickly whip through that after this song, after one of John's favourite songs. This is Kygo, Whitney Houston, and Higher Life. Round 3, yes, round 3 preview next. This is SWR Sport. SWR Sunday sessions 20 to 6 with you for another 20 or so minutes. The key word there being so. Round 3 preview in just a second. A bit of other rugby league news going around. And Peter V'landys has ruled out a heavy player pay cuts and will lobby for the salary cap to remain at $9.9 million next season in a huge win for the NRL's elite stars. It was revealed today that the feared financial shake-up of the NRL player contracts will not occur, with V'landys saying the coach new broadcast deal will prevent a drastic slashing of the salary cap. That broadcast deal is supposed to be done in the next 48 hours, and players will need to pass on an assessment from an NRL screener to play on game days as the governing body finalise its match day operations. The NRL will enforce strict biosecurity protocols at matches, but have allowances to ensure games are played even if a flu sweeps through a club. Just like it has been at training, any player attends matches with flu-like symptoms or has a temperature will be ruled out and quarantined. Grounds will be divided into clean and dirty zones, with the clean zones heavily policed, just like it has been for players since their return to training. If a player or players are ruled out of games because of any flu-related illnesses, the club will be free to replace them with permission from the NRL. So there you go. There's a bit of other news happening. There's a couple of other things we'll get to a bit later on. John's Song of the Week, not too far away, but how good is this, guys? We actually get to preview some football, and next weekend we'll be able to review some football. So let's get stuck into it. Your tips for round 3 of the National Rugby League. We've been waiting long enough to do it, only a couple of months. So let's go through what the draw is for round 3. It all kicks off Thursday night at 7:50 up at Suncorp Stadium. The Brisbane Broncos taking on the Parramatta Eels. Jonathan Gallo, both of these teams undefeated. How do you see this one going up at Suncorp Stadium?
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be a close one. I'm just liking Parramatta Eels for this one. I think their start to the season, round 1 and 2, I think they were positive. I know the Broncos have come out of the blocks really well as well. It's going to be a close one, this one. I'm excited for this. I think it's going to have a lot of excitement to it. I'm going towards Parramatta. I think Parramatta are just going to be a top 4 outfit this year for me. I think the back line in the back three in particular, Gutherson, and you've also got Mitchell Moses in there, Madison out on the edges. I think combined with all that, I think Parramatta are raring to go for this one. I think Parramatta just by 4 points.
Johnny?
Surprise, surprise. I'll go against Gallo. Look, I think the Broncos are going to win this one hands down. I think there's still some stars. Yeah, 100%. I think they're going to be too classy. You've got to remember, last season, Parramatta put 50 on the Broncos at Bankwest. I just think that the Broncos are going to absolutely give it. It won't be a big score, but I think that they're going to win this quite comfortably, the Broncos. I just think their forward pack and the way that Milford played rounds 1 and 2, mate, I'm all for the Broncos having a big season.
Do you not think that Milford this year, and this is both of you, do you not think Milford last season was a little bit inconsistent? I know the fact that he was changing positions midway through didn't help, but even the last 3 years, I don't think Milford has lived anywhere near his potential.
I couldn't agree anything more with you, Gallo, but I think the shift to 6 and him just with that, his kicking game that he possesses, and I think he's just absolutely finessed it in the start of season 2020. Defensively, look, he could have holes in his defence, but he's going to have some big players either side of him, whether it's Tavita Pangai Jr., David Fafita, guys like those guys standing next to him. So I don't see it being an issue.
I'm tipping the Broncos as well. I think it'll be close, but I think the Broncos will win. I thought they were pretty impressive, as much as you can take out of something that happened 2 months ago.
Was there a sale on the Broncos membership during the off-season I didn't fucking know about? Honestly, people have got... they're not that great.
Where do you see the Broncos finishing? Where do you see the Broncos finishing?
I think they'll be 7th or 8th this year.
Oh,
lucky to be there. You talk about Dave Fafita being the greatest forward in the game. Oh my God, he had about a good game.
Fafita will go close to being Dally M Player of the Year.
Oh God, here we go, Johnny. What are you drinking down there, mate?
I'm just telling.
Not beer.
Come
on, please, got to your head, mate.
He will be close to Dally and Player of the Year. He will be probably second row of the year.
I think that barber went too close to your scalp, mate. That's ridiculous.
Broncos for mine in a close one. Nothing against Parramatta. I've tipped them to be in the grand final. 6 p.m. Friday night, Cowboys take on the Titans up there at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. In other words, the new Townsville Stadium. Cowboys for mine. A lot of question marks on them. The Titans, many more question marks on them. Johnny, Cowboys or Titans, 6 p.m. Friday night.
Yeah, look, I don't really think they're going to have too big of a season, the Cowboys, but I think they'll be too classy for the Titans. So, yeah, I've got to go with the Cows.
It's got to be the Cowboys. I'm shocked that Johnny's not gone for the Titans, given his form, his pick, but I'm going to go for the Cowboys. I think they're just going to be too good, too classy. I actually think the Cowboys have got a big chance of making the bottom 4 of the 8 this year. I really do. I think Valentine Holmes, Michael Morgan, Granville. You talk about Takihaho.
He plays for the Roosters.
What's his name? Tamalolo. I think he'd be fantastic.
All right. I think the Cowboys will win this game as well. 7:55 Friday night at Bankwest Stadium. The Sydney Roosters take on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. John, Roosters winless. Rabbitohs 1 from 2. Both teams definitely not at their best at the start of the season. The 2 games already played. It's going to be weird watching this match, firstly, from a personal point of view, not being there, but secondly, without fans. This is probably the biggest rivalry in rugby league, but even though there's going to be no fans there, I still think there's going to be a lot of feeling between these two teams. Latrell Mitchell meets his former team for the first time. I think it'll be close, but I think the Roosters in a very, very tight game.
Yeah, I think the Roosters will get over this one pretty comfortably. I think South's off-season with the Latrell Mitchell saga going on, I don't think they're as best prepared as they possibly could be. I think that's probably thrown a few question marks over Latrell Mitchell, even more so. Defensively, again, I mentioned it before, I think position-wise, I think he's in all sorts. And I think with Luke Keary there and Jake Friend, our dummy half, I think they're going to find him out pretty comfortably. I think the Roosters will get over at least by 10 points over South.
Yeah, Roosters too classy. Just the players that Gallo rattled off then, they're just going to be a class above. And no Cody Walker for the Bunnies is going to be a big loss. So I think it's going to be one-way traffic. Yeah,
and that preparation with Cody Walker, all that stuff, off-field stuff, I think is coming at a bad time for South too.
We are on next Saturday and Sunday, so we'll preview the rest of the games in detail next week, but we'll still do a bit of them now. Saturday at 3 p.m. at Central Coast Stadium, the Warriors taking on the Dragons. Johnny, your Dragons, very quickly, firstly, on this game, and how do you see the Dragons going throughout the year? In this game, I actually have tipped the Dragons. I just don't know how the Warriors are going to go this year, but that's not really saying much at the moment. Dragons for mine in God knows what sort of game this is going to be, Johnny.
Yeah, it's going to be a hard one to gauge. And look, I think the Warriors are going to be everyone's second team in season 2020. I think the whole of Australia or the whole NRL, everyone that loves rugby league has got to really get on board the Warriors bandwagon here, because without the Warriors coming over and putting in their lives on hold back in New Zealand, we could potentially have not had a competition, or there could have been a bye put in. It wouldn't have been the same setup for 2020. So I think everyone's got to get behind the Warriors and really support them. I know they've set up base there at Terrigal up on the Central Coast, looking over the water. They were doing rolling down the street, having a couple of lattes today, lapping it up down up there. But I just think it's fantastic what they've done. They've set up base up the Central Coast. They've made that home. So I dare say they're going to have the support of the Central Coast all behind them at the moment, because they haven't got a team to support. So everyone up there is going to think, well, let's get behind them. I know people can't go to the game and physically watch them in the grandstands, but I just hope they have a good year. Look, injuries are going to be their main concern throughout the year, but I think the Dragons are just going to nudge them out in this game. It's look, the Dragons, they're in the same boat as the Warriors. I think both of them are going to have a bit of an up and down season. Potentially there's going to be more L's next to their name than W's throughout the year. But it is a tough one. This is probably the hardest one to pick. If it was a home and away normal season, we'd be tipping the Warriors because of the Dragons having to go over there. But being up the Central Coast, and I think that the Dragons will just nudge them.
John?
Yeah, I think the Dragons in a real close one. This will be one of the very few games that Mary will win. So I wonder how his reaction will be when they win. He'll be shocked more than anyone else, I suppose.
He'll probably get re-signed for another 5 years.
Yeah, definitely in a 5-year contract.
5:30 at Bankwest Stadium next Saturday night. And as I say, we'll preview more of these in depth next week. Sharks take on the West Tigers. John, on this one, I'm going to lean towards the Tigers, but again, a pretty hard one to tip.
Yeah, hard one to tip for me. Look, I'm probably just going to lean in favour of the Tigers. I think, Lomu out there, Joseph Luai, not Lomu, just Luai.
That would be impressive.
Yeah.
So many different ways.
You've got to watch a documentary on Lomu, by the way. It's a really good one. But yeah, Luai, I'd go with him. I think the Tigers overall, their forwards, I think they've got a bit of grunt in there. Cronulla, I think it's going to be a close one, this one. To me, this is going to be the hardest one to pick, Tigers or Cronulla. Both are gritty teams. Both like to fight to the end. I just see the Tigers just nudging over Cronulla in the end.
Johnny?
Yeah, I've got the Sharks. I'm going to lean towards the Sharks here in this one. I just tend to feel that they've had the time off, so a lot of those guys that have had the niggling injuries and stuff like that, they'll play this week. It's the latter rounds that concern me with the Sharks. I think this will be a close game, but I think the Sharks.
All right, 7:30 at Amy Park down in Melbourne. Next Saturday, the Melbourne Storm taking on the Canberra Raiders. We talk about the Roosters Souths game. This is potential of the game of the round as well. In fact, there's some great games throughout round 3 of the National Rugby League. Leaning towards the Storm at home, although, again, no fans. Johnny kind of takes a bit out of it. The Raiders, if they can beat the Storm, they automatically straight away make a statement in this year's competition. The Storm in a toss of the coin match for me.
Yeah, I've got the Raiders. I think they'll knock off the Storm down there. I think it's going to take a little bit of time there for that Storm team to adjust to the one referee. I think Cameron Smith's going to take real advantage of it straight away, but it'll be the others that are going to have to follow suit with him. Look, I think the Raiders win this, and they nearly go into premiership favourites at the end of round 3.
John?
I'm going to go with Melbourne on this one. I think you talk about their two halves, Hughes and Munster I mentioned before. The Bromwich brothers as well. You got to remember the Bromwich brothers are one of the most impressive forwards going around last season. And Kafusi out on the edge there. I've got big raps on Kafusi. I think he had a brilliant State of Origin period. I really like the way he goes about his business. And Dale Finucane in that lock. He was the most impressive lock running around for a while there. He made a State of Origin side last year. He was impressive with that as much. So I really like the way Melbourne are going to go about it. I think they'll just be too strong at Miller Park for Canberra in the end. 2
games next Sunday, 4 o'clock at Campbelltown Stadium. The Penrith Panthers take on the Newcastle Knights. I think this is going to be a very telling game, and we'll talk more about it in depth next week. But I do think this is going to be a very telling game. Obviously, another 2 sides undefeated. I lean towards the Knights. Of course, no Nathan Cleary for the Penrith Panthers is a big loss, but no Kalen Ponga, I think I'm right in saying, for the Knights either, which sort of counters that. No home ground advantage, obviously. Knights for mine, but again, this could go either way, John.
Yeah, it can go either way. Tight one, particularly given come back from the lockdown. Look, I'm going to lean in favour of Penrith. I think Nathan Cleary, I think he's going to be right to play, is he?
No, he's out for 2 games, suspended.
He's out for 2 games suspended. So it's going to be somewhat of a blow for them, but I think with Kafusi in there, and I think also Tedavano, I honestly think besides Ryan Madison going to Parramatta, I think those two signings are probably the best two off-field signings for the Panthers they could have made. I really do. I think once they get that spine back, I think you're really going to see the Panthers click. I still think they're good enough to beat Newcastle. I think Newcastle are going to be the most affected from this lockdown. Adam O'Brien's a great young coach coming through there. There's big raps on him from what he did at the Roosters and Melbourne Storm, being as an assistant at both clubs. But I think that the fact they've had time away is going to really hurt Newcastle. They would have loved to work on his tactics, work on strategies, get to understand the way he wants to play. And given this lockdown, and given only 17 days to get ready for this game, I think the Knights are going to really be severely affected from this. So I think the Panthers are going to win this one.
Johnny?
I like the Knights. No Nathan Cleary, no 2 points for the Panthers this season. He's there. He is their everything. They're going to find it really. They're going to find it really hard to play without him, because they structure so much around him that I really think that they're going to struggle without him. But look, I think once Nathan Cleary comes back into the side, they might be a different side. But come periods throughout the year, he may be injured and things like that. That's where I think the Panthers are going to struggle. But look, the Knights for me are just going to be too good.
And the final game, and we look, as I said, more at this next week. The final game, 6:30 next Sunday at Central Coast Stadium. The Manly Seagulls taking on the Canterbury Bulldogs. Johnny, and the Manly Seagulls for mine in this one. I think they'll be too good for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I think they will be too. I think it's going to be one-way traffic there for Manly. I just think that I think the Bulldogs can win some games this year. I just don't think it's going to be round 3.
John?
Yeah, for me, it's an easy one, Manly. I think the Bulldogs are just, as I said, a lack of recruitment this year. Luke Thompson's a good player we've got over, I think, from St Helens over in the UK, but he won't be joining until 2021. But obviously missing, some of the players. I think it's who's a Melbourne guy we've got from Melbourne? Just Joe Simpson.
Joe Simpson.
Joe Simpson. He's out with a shoulder reconstruction, so he's going to miss a good part of the season. I think they're going to miss him. I think the back line still needs work. I'm not a fan of Foran. I don't know where Johnny was talking about before. Foran's got to go. He's just been terrible. Dummy half. We've got nothing out dummy half either. So I think we lack of spine, lack of creativity on the edges. Same old boring Bulldogs. I think the Manly will run over them pretty comfortably.
All right, that is the quick preview of round 1 done. But next Saturday and Sunday, we're on from midday next Saturday and Sunday. The 12 to 1 hour on both days will be very much focused on football, which will be a preview and review of all the games. And then after 1, we'll sort of split it up because obviously there's a lot of other things that we do attend to on the show as well. So all the favourite things like John's Thoughts of the Week, which is not too far away, and all of that will still be part of the show. But the serious football talk, we're going straight into it between 12 and 1, both Saturday and Sunday. So really looking forward to that, both Saturday and Sunday from midday. Now, 1 minute past 6, which means, funnily enough, we're running over time again. The Warriors are now on the lookout for temporary reinforcements after the NRL paved the way for their embattled club to receive short-term loan players. We don't have much time to talk about it, but I think it's a fantastic idea. And anything the NRL can legally do for the Warriors, I think they definitely need to do. There's a short list at the moment of 5 or 6 players, including the likes of the Tigers' Matt Eisenhuth, at Georgia, the Warriors' Eddie Blacker, to join the club immediately. So there you go. Good news for the Warriors, who, as Johnny Warritley said, have done a lot for the game. All right, it's that time. Jonathan Gallo, before we leave, your thoughts of the week, part 2.
My thoughts of the week today, and I hope you're listening, Johnny, is this is what we discussed the other day, Dan, actually, off air. I don't know if you remember, but
Don't know what it is yet.
it was a thought that overcame me, and it was just a light in my head that just went, bang, what an idea this is. Whenever you come against, you know how you're walking down the street and you just think, you might hit someone up who just seems a little bit odd.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit odd.
Mm-hmm.
Just maybe they're not all there. Maybe they just had a rough day. Whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking, oh, God, I wish I never ran into this person. I wish I just want to leave. I wish I never ran into this person. Anyway, if you could avoid all that, we have road scanners, we have speed scanners, we have all that today to detect. I was thinking if we could have one of those little chips in us that could detect whether we're coming up against a weird bloke scanner. So someone who's going to be quite unusual, it just starts beeping. It just starts beeping off in our little ear. Only we can hear it. No one else can. So only you can hear it, right? It just beeps, and it just goes off in your little ear just to tell you beep, 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 just two buzzers. And you're thinking, hang on, someone around this vicinity that I'm standing close to is a little bit odd. My weird radar has gone off, and now I'm going to slowly move away from this person to avoid any awkward conversation I have to have.
Would the radar go off when people walk near you?
It probably would go well off.
There's a person I can think of at our favourite establishment that I think should have that little radar implanted.
Yeah.
I like the idea. I think it's a good idea, but I suppose you've also got to consider what's weird. Like, where do you draw the line? In fact, I'm a bit worried about asking you that.
Any erratic behaviour, any erratic behaviour. Someone who's just in that vicinity, just anyone that you give a double take to, and it just reads your little thought, and there's some part of your brain, some neuron cortex in your brain that thinks, "What the hell is that person doing?" And it just makes a bing in your ear and goes ding ding. Maybe keep away from that bloke. He's a bit awkward.
And girl?
He's a bit awkward.
Okay, so it's a both sex thing.
Yeah. It doesn't discriminate. So if I saw Johnny down the street, for example, without a haircut, I would give him a little bit of a nod glance. It'd just be like, oh, just something in the corner of my eye. Just something that just be like, hell's he wearing? What the hell haircut is that? And then just go.
I tell you what, Gallo. If the 4 listeners didn't leave because of the song, they've left now.
Mate, the 4 listeners left because you bagged the Broncos in the top 4, and they went, "What the hell's this guy on?"
When
that left ages ago.
Last time I was in Bodno Junction, I was getting money out, and there was this woman who, I don't know, it's probably about 50 or 60 years of age, and this is where I think the weed radar is good. She shakes a lot because there's obviously, something quite not right with her, and she finished a whole bottle of wine in the space of time that I managed to get money out of the bank, and that was 30 seconds. So I think a weed radar would be good for someone like that as well. I think you're onto something.
It's safety, Dan. Look how many people would say we wouldn't have anything weird going on. We would be very, very safe.
Would you give Donald Trump a chip?
I'd give Donald Trump. I'd give someone else a radar as well.
I like Trump, mate. I think he's good.
Oh, here we go. Why does that? That doesn't shock me. That doesn't shock me at all. This bloke over here. I mean,
him, ScoMo, Volandis. They're in my corner, mate. They're in my corner.
What you are, mate. You're the Osama bin Laden of rugby league because you're a bloody extremist with your views, mate. Dead set. You're a bloody extremist. You got these weird ideas that Brisbane are going to win the competition. They're going to be in top 2. You think Milford's the greatest born player you've ever seen? Christ almighty, mate. You probably think Mary's the best coach to grace the Dragons, do you? Oh, my God.
Lovely bloke, Mary.
All right. No. We are going to go. Well done, John. I thought that was one of your better ideas, though, it has to be said. All right, let's get out of here. What is for dinner tonight? Johnny Pett, tell us what you are having for dinner tonight.
Absolutely no idea.
Cool.
So, absolutely no idea.
Surprised.
Yeah.
He'll be watching his Donald Trump videos. Jonathan Gallo. Now, this is how bad I am.
Donald Trump too, doesn't he? He's got the big comb over like Donald Trump.
Now,
look at that,
Jealous because you can't pull it off.
Now, John, you told me a couple of hours ago what you're having, and I've completely and utterly forgotten. So, what are you having for dinner tonight? Tell all the listeners.
I'll refresh your memory as it's terribly exciting. Chicken stir fry is what I'm having tonight, Dan.
Very nice.
And who cooked it? I cooked it.
Okay.
So
let's see how you are tomorrow.
I'm going to be like Peter Volandis and say, I cooked it, Dan. It will be good.
Brilliant. I look forward to hearing the review.
That's right.
I am having some kangaroo.
Looking forward to about 6 o'clock as well. I'm going to make an early kick as well.
Good.
And we're going one eating person, not 2. We're doing it one eating person. Cancel out the crap. With
no ruck. I am going to have kangaroo steak tonight with some. With some.
Honest to God, you shock me, Daniel, because you have got a bloody 5-star restaurant going on in the back of your bloody house I haven't heard about. You had mussels the other week. You had some like a Papa Pow soup or some crap that you had.
What?
You've had
Tom Yum soup. Week? Tom Yum soup is the one.
Tom Yum soup.
No, Tom Yum.
Exotic crap last. What did you have last night?
I can't remember what I had last night.
Mexican fajitas?
Yeah,
fajitas?
Mexican, yeah.
And now you're going with a kangaroo steak. I mean, honest to God. Gordon Ramsay's in the kitchen.
Now, my girlfriend has sent you some recipes for you to cook. So you could potentially be eating this delicious food as well.
Well, hang on. They're all Indian Passage foods, mate.
No. The first one was a chicken casserole.
Well, yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah, I'll add the chicken casserole.
Well,
I should do that.
We'll send you the Mexican recipe.
Send me the kangaroo steak one, but hang on, I don't think there's any kangaroo steak you can get out there for less than $35. So that's a bit bloody pricey, isn't it?
I didn't buy it, so
good sign.
I don't think kangaroo steak costs $35. I think it costs like $10 or $15. But anyway, I wouldn't know. I didn't buy it. On that note, yes, John.
Anyway, yes. No. I was going to go on too much here. I was just wondering, just quickly, if you get kangaroo meat from roadkill, will that be cheaper?
Probably not going to happen. Thank you for that. That could be for next week. We're going. Johnny Pett, thank you. We'll see you next Sunday afternoon, a bit earlier than usual. Would have a great week.
See you, boys. See you all next week. Gallo, go the Broncos.
John.
He's got a membership this week, for sure.
John.
He's got a bloody...
Thank you for your hard work throughout the week. Now, don't forget, John, next week, midday.
Midday. Great. I'll wake up about 11:30 for that. I'll be right as rain.
Good. Look forward to it. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy your chicken stir fry.
Enjoy your kangaroo, mate. I'm sure it's going to be delicious.
Thank you. Thank you to Johnny Pett. Thank you to Jonathan Gallo. Chicken stir fry. That will be very, very good. All right, that's it. We're out of here. Thank you to Jonathan Gallo. Thank you to Johnny Pett, as per usual. And a big thanks to all of them, and League Freak and Nathan, for the past couple of months giving up their Saturday and Sunday afternoons throughout all of this to keep everyone entertained and talk a bit of football. We will be back next week, next Saturday and Sunday at the new time slot. Midday Saturday, midday Sunday, all the football that's being played, but also a lot of the fun stuff that you've been hearing over the past few months as well. If you want to get in contact at any time throughout the week, at SWR999 Sport, at SWR999 Sport. Thank you for your company today. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe, whatever you are doing. But most importantly, enjoy the football. 4 sleeps to go until the Broncos and the Eels get us back underway for season 2020. On behalf of the whole team, have a great week. We'll catch you next Saturday, Sunday, midday here on SWR League.